Hey folks. Hey. Happy Thursday. I'm a little too far from my camera. Let's straighten that out. Okay. All right. Sound check. Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me? Let me get my shout outs in. Let me just say this has been an interesting day. By the way, I had a totally different live setup for you guys. And then it was like every time I checked my phone, something crazier was happening. So I had to kind of recalibrate my live to fit with everything going on. So we have a lot to get through. I got, let's see, 10 pages of notes. We might not get through everything, but we shall see. Let me see to get some sound disciples. You can hear me? Perfect. All right, I'm gonna do a few quick shout outs and then we're gonna keep it moving. What up, D Bradford? Hey. Naturally beautiful. Yeah, she said, well, Diddy just got sued by Cassie for can't say these words anymore. They're starting to demonetize folks for saying the wrong terms, but for that kind of trafficking, yeah, we'll talk about it. Look at y'all being all messy. Y'all are here for Diddy's comments. All right. What up, Sanja? What up, Janet Bennett? Who else we got in here? So much going on. There's a lot going on, Mixie girl. A whole lot. Let's see. What up? EB918, Lexi 192, S Carter, M&M's, Chase 385, Connie. Tyler Hackner. What up? Okay, y'all gonna be so mad at me, but I just realized that my tea's still in the microwave. I have purposely made an effort to have everything here when we start. So just give me 10 seconds. I promise it's not gonna take that long. Just go grab it and we're starting right away. I'm gonna just talk to y'all while I grab it. Lord, had one job. Still didn't do it. It's okay, because I'm already back. See how that worked? I moved quick. Let me just put this down here. Oh, damn it, I spilled my water. Okay, I'm coming. Okay, my bad. Somebody gonna have an attitude about that later. Every time we come on his live, he always gotta get up and go get something. Every time. Mind your business. This is my house. I do what I want. Pay too much in rent anyway. Okay. Anyway, so just a few updates. Book club. We are meeting this upcoming Monday, 9 p.m. As you know, we are covering chapters 10 through 12. For the short and tragic life of Robert Peace. That is on Zoom. The link is already posted in the comment section, the community page. So for anybody who is interested in joining the book club, all you have to do is click the Zoom link, right? Even if you have not had an opportunity to read up to chapter 12, or maybe you just want to join and be a part of the conversation, that is fine as well. You're welcome to join us. A lot of times there's some people who haven't read any of the content, but they love the discourse and the discussion that we have. So, anybody is welcome. Like I said, Monday, 9 p.m. Eastern time. All right. So that's the book club. What else is going on? I got a chance to go to the Wale show. Wale had kind of like a one night off kind of special here in DC at Kennedy Center. It's an interesting show. Like it wasn't, I'll say this. My beef with the show is just the sound was horrible. Like it was in a Kennedy Center and normally they have really good sound, but for some reason it did not go well at this venue. And I felt bad for the people who were in the back because it was like the music was fine, but like with the mics and the voices, you couldn't really hear much. Now, I was smart. Like me and the lady, we had a box seat like up high because rap concerts, I'm sorry, I don't really be on the floor like that because y'all be fighting too much. So I made sure to get a box seat, secluded. So if something go down, I can just walk out my little back door and be on my way because y'all be doing too much sometimes at the rap shows. But it was a decent show. I mean, I liked that he had a live band. He also had a string section. The background vocalists did what they did. So I was like, okay, it's cool. Like for DC, he's kind of a DC kind of, act that people here are always going to support. So, I mean, he's had his national rounds and stuff, but I feel like he's kind of homegrown here. So it was kind of cool to go to the show. It was still nice. So I enjoyed it for what it was. And so that was cool. And so that's pretty much the main things. Don't get me started on my 2 cents with this Whoopi video because some of these folks have been trying it in the comments section. Now, I normally don't really argue with people in the comment section because I don't be pressed. But it's what's so funny with YouTube is you can always tell who is actually seeing a video and who just commented based on the title and the fact that they see me on the camera. Maybe they got smoke from me, so they just start commenting. Because what I found so funny, for those who disagreed with me tenfold on my 2 cents around the conversation of just the nonsense millennials and even Gen Z, and honestly, the younger half of Gen X deals with economically, what was so funny is for everyone who had all the smoke for me, not a single person ever said anything to refute the stats, facts, and numbers. That's what I was waiting for the smoke. Everybody wanted to talk about me personally. I was like, Sorry, I would rather you debate the numbers. The numbers have been presented. Let's talk that. Like, let's talk about, you know, the inflation of housing going up 1,608%. Like, I need you to address that. Not what you think about me or whether or not you think I live in my mama's house, which I don't. Like, but it would be nice because I could save some money on rent. Mama, can I move back in, please? So it was very interesting to see that discourse. And honestly, even with that, I'm glad people understood that, especially with the conversation of like baby boomers. There is definitely a huge discrepancy between white baby boomers and black baby boomers. Two different experiences, two different worlds when we're talking economics. So much is so different because, again, black baby boomers were left out of a lot of the benefits that white baby boomers have benefited from. That's why in modern times, we have so many situations where everybody's fighting to hold on to Big Mama's house, right? So another day, another conversation. But hey, at the end of the day, if you have some smoke, argue the numbers and the stats. Don't argue with me. I'm just the messenger. Okay? Argue the numbers. That's all I got to say. Anyway, where do we want to start? There's a lot going on. You know what? I'm gonna start with Will Smith, right? Yeah, this one, I'm not gonna lie, this one is a lot heavier with a lot of celebrity content. We still got some heavier stuff in here in regard to things in regard to politics and the black experience overall. But because there's so much celebrity stuff going on, I'm like, dang, man. Y'all be looking at me sideways if I don't cover certain things. So I was like, let me try to mix it up. So we're going to do a lot of bouncing back and forth because there's a lot going on. As far as Will Smith, right? So there was some dude named Brother Bilal that had come out. He did an interview on Tasha K's platform and pretty much laid out all of Will Smith's business, allegedly, right? All of the business about him and possibly, Lord, I can't even think of the dude's name. Was it Dwayne Martin? Dwayne Martin. And anyway. I'm going to say this. What I found very interesting in all of that is, one, personally, I don't think anything that was said is super damning. And I only say that because I think when it comes to Will and Jada, because they already live in that Hollywood bubble and people have always had things to say about them as a couple, any kind of revelation that comes out in regard to that kind of content is not really shocking to anybody. And so for me, I just feel like with that interview, something seems very off with the dude that was telling all the business to me, because I just felt like, what's the end goal here? That was really where I was sitting at with it. Like, what is the end goal, right? Because again, it would have been different if there was some kind of allegation that was made where Will Smith has done something that is criminal. But in regard to trying to, I guess, expose or put all their business out there like that, for me, I'm still lost at what the end goal was supposed to be, right? Because honestly, like I said, most people already have their suspicions and their 2 cents on somebody like Will and Jada. So most people honestly really don't care. In 2 weeks, nobody will be talking about this. And so, again, like I said, they're already in that Hollywood bubble where all kind of things go down anyway. And so for me, it's kind of like for the Brother Bilal dude, to me, I feel like you gained absolutely nothing from doing this, but getting a bad reputation, right? Because for me, I guess looking at it, because he's claiming that at one point he was Will's best friend and they worked together for years and years and years. And I'll say this, I haven't really fallen out with too many people in life. I do have 1 or 2 people I don't really F with like that. But even in that realm, for the people I may not necessarily be good with, I would never go on a platform and then try to lay out that kind of business on anybody, even for people that may have done me wrong and vice versa, just because at the end of the day, if somebody was your best friend and you guys had 10, 15, 20 years of a history, no matter what happened in regard to that friendship, there would still be some element of decency that you would have where you wouldn't wish ill upon that person, whether you get along with them or not. So like, I definitely had one childhood best friend that I fell out with in 2015, but you've never seen me come on this platform and drag them to hell and back. Like there's no point behind doing it. You know what I mean? And so really, to me, that doesn't sound like somebody who was ever really a friend. To me, that's somebody who is an opportunist, right? And like, even when you talk about the details that he chose to share, it's all messy. You know, it's, you know, what he saw when he opened the door and what position they were in. And now he's talking about like how well endowed Will is. I was like, none of this makes a difference between today and tomorrow in regard to just any kind of collective conversation. So what is the end goal here? Like for me, again, I don't see the purpose in really jumping out there to try to put that out. And for me, it kind of comes off as just you shared all that with the intent to destroy, because there's no other revelation you could come up with, right? And so it's kind of weird because I feel like people already have it out for that family anyway. You know, I feel like Will's been trying to rebuild his image after all of this. We already got to deal with all the stuff with Jada, and there's been a whole lot and everything. But like I said, to me, that comes off as somebody who has never really been a friend, right? And the other part is, if you thought you had like some kind of opportunity, you burned all the bridges because everybody else who's outside of that circle is now looking at you sideways. So if you had aspirations to work or continue to work in that field, you just lost all of that. Like those doors are closing because again, to me, it's just messy, right? And then even the platform you went on to do it with, it's like, all right, well, we see how this is going to go. And so I think a lot of people are taking what he said with a grain of salt because again, if you got a chance, and I didn't watch the whole interview, I just saw the snippets that had gone viral that were circulating around. And watching that, I was like, this is very, I'm lost with the end goal here. I'm really lost with what the end goal is supposed to be. You know what I mean? And so I'll say this because the other thing too, I think a lot of times when you kind of jump into mess purposely to kind of get clout or build a reputation, what happens is, yeah, you're going to have that wave of people who are interested in what it is that you have to say. But eventually that hype dies down. And because you have nothing else to offer, people move on. And so I think of another celebrity who I'm not going to name, who a few years back started going on this kind of like, I'm not even gonna call it PR, but they started going on all these large channels and kind of putting everybody's business out there because apparently they were in all of these circles, which to me, there's no evidence of, but they kind of started putting everybody's business out there. And yes, people ate it up for the first month or two. And then after a while, it started to become redundant because people are like, well, how do you know all these people? And, you know, the story just starts to get real questionable. And then after a while, that individual starts to look a little loony, right? And before you know it, they go from being on the channels that have like 1 million subscribers, and now they're you know, grasping for straws on the smaller channels that have 20 and 30,000 subscribers at this point, trying to hold on to any element of relevance. And so I think sometimes understand all like the idea of just jumping into everything or trying to be that person to, you know, shake the table. There's some tables you don't really need to worry about shaking. I think that's a table that we really didn't, it wasn't going to make a difference between our today and tomorrow. So I feel like you've just set yourself up, right? And so at this point, your only leverage is going to be Will and Jada. That's all people are going to want to hear from you about. And eventually that's going to get old and tired because people are already tired of hearing about Will and Jada. You know what I mean? And so what I read that apparently he has a book or something that's coming out. And even with that, most like kind of like gossip books don't do well anyway. Most of the time, you're not getting a big publishing deal unless you really have something to put out there. And I think for the kind of content that he's trying to put out there and the way that he's going about it, no major publishing company is going to touch him because nobody wants the liability of being sued, right? And look, Jada already said we suing. And so I'll just say this, because I'm also giving a strong side eye to the platform that he chose to go on, and even the person in charge of that platform, like Tasha, you got enough going on. You would think you kind of lay low because you already owe somebody $4 million. It's like, I don't know, right? But I will say for other people, because I know YouTube is a very oversaturated market, and there's so many people who are still trying to get in. And I know when it comes to celebrity culture, that's one of the tickets in. You can always grow really fast if you talk celebrity culture. If you talk gaming, you grow really, really fast. If you want to jump in the manosphere and go into that space, yeah, you can build a following, but you're also going to be there's that. There's, at one point, it used to be like cosmetics and hair care, but, you know, there's only so many outlets that really make you grow your platform super, super fast. But just understand that if you want to be like taken seriously, if you're trying to really grow, and I guess I'm one to talk because I really don't have a big channel like that, but understand at some point you have to ask yourself, you know, is this story worth my integrity? Is this story worth my reputation or the credibility I have? Like, there's a lot of people in this YouTube space that would like to be taken seriously as journalists, right? And so my thing would be, at some point, you have to have some discernment about what to jump into and what not to. Based on what I saw, do I think possibly there is some conversation around interesting things that may have possibly happened with Will in the past or Jada? Sure, I guess. I mean, again, it's Hollywood. Everybody does what they do. And I think, and even in regards to sexuality, I think a lot of people are on different spectrums. So there's another conversation for that. But do I specifically believe this guy and the narrative he's put out there? Actually, no. I just feel like this is somebody messy. And I was thinking like, yeah, something is off with all of this. There's something behind the scenes we don't know about, some kind of money grab. And then boom, here comes confirmation. I see Jada on the Breakfast Club saying, yeah, this is a situation where somebody was trying to extort and some other things. And so there's that. Now, he is saying that he had to put this out because he was receiving death threats and some other things. And I don't know. Even the conversation of death threats from Will, to me, it's like you laugh. Will, all right. All of a sudden, okay. Will barely could slap Chris Rock properly. And now all of a sudden, y'all want to act like Will is Suge Knight. Okay. So I'm not sure. And I get it. For a lot of people, it's their brand to kind of be the messy gossip, put everybody's business out there, blog. But at the same time, don't be mad when people sue. And when people sue and when people come after you, do not sit here and then try to pull us all in and stand behind you because this is an attack on black journal. No, it's not. You chose to be messy and you chose to jump into some stuff that wasn't vetted. And so that's going to be very, very interesting. And just understand, I feel like the other thing, and this is more so for people that have an interest in kind of going this route, when you approach from a standpoint of just being straight up vicious, straight up just savage with how you do things, understand that that's what people are going to come to you for. And eventually you have to keep upping the ante because people want more and more and more. People become desensitized to things that would have been, explosive 10 years ago. In modern times, they're like, okay, you got to come harder than that. So what ends up happening? People start going above and beyond to really try to, get that exclusive or really try to get some story that's going to break the internet. And then what happens is people start to really lose their credibility. And again, that conversation of integrity. Now they start grasping for straws, latching on to anything, all in the name of hoping to get some big story. And before you know it, they start putting out things that aren't truthful. They start putting things that haven't been confirmed. And before you know it, they owe people $4 million. So again, I think people have to move really smart with how that works. If you start moving sloppy, just understand that's what you're going to get, right? And so, I don't know. And especially when you talk about people who start getting intertwined in other people's court cases, and now they're like a middleman in Syria. Like at some point, you have to just determine and decipher how deep into this mess do you want to go? Because this is still people's lives. You know what I mean? I'm going to pause right there and read some few comments, and then we're going to shift gears here. But we will see how this all unfolds. I really think there's some nonsense behind some of that. But to me, it just came off messy. Because even the information that was shared, there wasn't any information that actually needed to be shared. And then again, with Will and Jada and how they got stuff going, live your best life. That's where I'm at with it. So interesting. All right, I'm going to read some comments and then we're going to keep it going. I need to turn my thermostat down. It's getting hot in here too. Let's see. So I'm trying to scroll down. Brittany D said, I went to Wale and J. Cole concert back in 2013 and I enjoyed Wale's performance. He's one of my favorite rappers. He actually was really good with the musicality. The credit I really give him is a lot of his music is really good with melody. Lots of really memorable hooks. I was just telling somebody the other day, hooks are not a thing anymore. Like there's so many songs that don't really have hooks right now, especially in this modern era. I think that's why so many songs are forgettable. There's not those hooks that really stand out. And so with Wale, I'm not even super familiar with all of his albums like that. I only got like 2 of his albums, but as they were going through the songs, as soon as I would hear some of these hooks, I was like, oh, I remember that. Okay, all right. So, I definitely appreciated that. Felicia said, I'm 100% behind you on that Whoopi video. Why are they always coming for us millennials? I don't know. And I think too, because every generation has their flaws. And I think people missed the memo on what I was talking about. I responded to the video in the conversation as to why millennials and people in Gen Z are waiting till later to start families. That's really the gist of why I jumped into the conversation. And I was talking about the finances, but somehow folks jumped into, well, yeah, millennials are entitled and they don't want to work and they only want to have 4-hour work days and something. And so all these people started giving me these anecdotal responses. And I'm like, but yet nobody is responding to the numbers I presented. Talk to me about the numbers. I want the numbers here, right? You can talk about however hard you worked back in the day. Wonderful. We love it. We love to hear it. We love to see it. But again, I need you to respond to the numbers. I need you to talk about the conversation of inflation. I need you to talk about why the dollar doesn't stretch in the same manner that it did. Like that's the conversation. So again, conversations about, an individual response to a structural issue that's not going to do it for me. That's all I'm going to say. Anyway, I'm going to leave that alone. Dina Newton said, I don't believe that crap. Anything on Toxic K is not credible to me. I just think with that, I get it. Her brand is to kind of stir the pot. But I'm telling you, I didn't watch the whole interview. I don't even know if it's out. But just from that snippet I saw, I'm like, something is off with this. Something is real off with this. And then he started giving the reasoning as to why Jada would be stepping out because Will's not able to perform. I was like, all right, y'all be giving anybody platforms. Okay. Man. Goodness. Let's see here. Yeah, it does sound petty. And again, and if it's to sell a book, understand, I'm not trying to like be on a high horse and act like I'm the greatest thing walking, but understand a lot of times there's a lot of stories I don't even jump into because I don't feel like dealing with the nonsense behind it. But I just really think if your entire brand, and this is more so to Brother Bilal, the fact your name is Brother Bilal, where is the brotherly support? Ain't none of it tonight, right? I just think if your claim to fame is built on a foundation of just chaos and nonsense, I don't know what you think the end goal is going to be, right? Yeah, it'd be interesting to talk about, but people move on. And then nobody wants you around because they're going to be like, oh, here comes that messy person that's about to come up here just staying any and everything. And even with the details of how he caught Will and Dwayne, I'm like, so they did this on a movie set? Right. Now, I think if there's two people who already are trying to be low-key about what it is that they're doing, you think they're going to be bold enough to do it on a movie set and I guess not lock a door. All right, make it make sense. Anyway, oh, y'all are still letting Whoopi have it. Somebody said, why does it say this live started 3 hours ago? I don't know, but I did put the announcement out 3 hours ago, so maybe that's why. Yeah. Somebody said she's about to get sued again. Something would have told me to leave that one alone. They could have still had the interview, but I think that segment I would have taken out. Or I would have had to be like, you're going to have to give me some evidence before I put this out, because this is some stuff that's going a hot mess. So, yeah, we will see how that all unfolds. Oh, wait, selling the dang book. Imagine that. Yeah, I don't understand why all of a sudden Will is like target number one for everything all of a sudden. Interesting. Like, folks are already tired of hearing about them too. They already share too much. We don't need to hear nothing else that they got going, right? Let me see. All right, we're going to keep it moving. I do want to come back to Gaza for a quick minute. I'm going to say this in regard to Gaza. At this point, because we talked about it on the last live, and we're just kind of still seeing how this unfolds. For me, from what I've seen, to me, this at this point looks like a land grab, right? It sounds like the plan is to just pretty much bomb and blow everybody up and push them off the land. And eventually, when there's nothing left, Israel just takes over the rest, right? Because now you're hearing conversations of kind of, giving people from Gaza asylum in other countries and everything, trying to move all of them out. And so my thing is this: I think the U.S. needs to tread very carefully with how involved they want to be in this nonsense, right? Because for me, somebody like Netanyahu has no problem escalating this into even more, especially with the other countries that surround Israel. Like, understand Israel is pretty much surrounded by a bunch of countries that don't like them, pretty much, right? And Netanyahu at this point, to me, I feel like he's operating off ego. If you really jump back into just that history, remember, at one point he was prime minister in the 90s, right? And then he lost an election in 99. He lost in 99 to his last name is Barack. I can't think of the man's name, but the last name is Barack. He lost 99 to the Barack guy, right? And then there were all these different people who came, and then he finally came back in 09. And when he came back in 09, he was a lot more extreme, a lot more right wing, a lot more F the peace. We just done what I'm gonna do what I want to do, right? And I think, like I said, our politics need to move carefully with this, but they're not, because everybody's bought out. AIPAC has so much money in both parties, both the Democrats and the Republicans, and that's why you're seeing such a divide in the U.S. response, even when it comes to people in Congress. That's why you saw them censure, what's her last, Tlaib, I can't think of the lady's last name, but that's why you saw them censor her or whatever in regard to her speaking about Palestine. Like, imagine somebody being from a country that's being bombed, they talk about their experience, and then you censor them. And then try to claim, oh, they hopped onto some like terrorist rhetoric. I'm like, y'all are playing this silly game. But at this point, within the United States, 80% of Democrats and 60% of U.S. citizens are saying, please stop the bombings at this point. Because at this point, is this really a conversation of Israel defending itself? To me, it's not. At this point, you just blowing up everything, right? And so, yeah, he lost to Ahed Barak, that's his name, in 1999, right? That's the guy he lost to. And the thing for me, too, is when you really go back, like, people are trying to paint this narrative of, well, this group these are the terrorists and they're using human shields at the hospital. So I'm like, well, then why are you blowing up the hospital? You can't use the narrative or the conversation of, well, they're using people as human shields, but then you blow up everybody. People still died. Twice as many people than died at this point. So for me, I'm like, you need to make it make sense. And like I said on the last live, Netanyahu does not care about diplomacy. Netanyahu kind of has an end goal, and he's pushing for it. Understand, this dude is like the Trump of Israel, pretty much. And I think the sad part is, and I said this on the last live, when you go back to, especially when Clinton was still in office. Now, y'all know I got all kind of smoke for Clinton, but the credit I do give him in regard to that is the diplomatic approach to everything that was happening in that region. When he and Yasser Arafat and everybody were really like still working together, there had always been an effort to actually have peace in that region. Were things perfect? Absolutely not. You still had drama. You eventually saw the creation of Hamas. You saw Hezbollah start to become a thing. You saw some discrepancies, but up until, I'm really going to say till around the time Yasser Arafat died, right, there had always been an effort to try to build a peaceful coalition between the Palestinians and the Israelis. That had always been a thing. Were they on one accord? No, there was always going to be drama. There was always going to be nonsense. But there was an effort to try to somewhat appease the differences that exist in that area. And so now we're in a space where Netanyahu could care less. He wants to blow up everything and anybody, right? And that's why I'm looking at the U.S. crazy, like, why are we sending money and stuff over there? Israel already has enough funds to do what they need to do, right? And so, like I said, Gaza has no military. They have nobody defending them. They're on their own, right? And so continuing to bomb citizens, at this point, you just look terrible. And I think the U.S. looks terrible for standing behind it. Like I said on the last live, I pray that the rest of the world does not look at the United States government and assume that that represents what the people think. Because most people with common sense don't want to watch babies and children get blown up. And another thing with that too, because I keep seeing a conversation where they're like, oh, you know, when they talk about the casualties and they always talk about how many are women and children, understand even with men that are killed, for me, anybody that has been killed is a problem, especially when these are people who are not fighting anybody. These are people trying to escape and get to wherever they need to go to safety, and you're blowing up everything, right? And I just think it's a mess. And that brings me to Van Jones, right? Well, actually, let me pause him before I get to Van Jones and drag him a little bit more, because y'all know I like to tug at him. You see the United States response. Our media, again, is trying to paint one narrative, but you see the citizens are not buying it. Like, the U.S. cannot continue to operate like it's still the early 90s, where you can just paint the big bad boogeyman story and we're going to just all run behind it. People are like, hell no. You saw what happened with the Bay Bridge today in California, where they pretty much had the bridge blocked off. You saw what went down in D.C. last night in front of the DNC with people protesting. You're seeing all these different things where people are just like, you can't justify what's happening. Am I saying that what happened with people being kidnapped and a music festival being shot up and stuff was right? Absolutely not. That part is wrong as well. But you're not even addressing that issue. You're just taking it out on everybody who was there. And so, again, representing the conversation of the fact that when it comes to Hamas, they represent 1% of the population, right? 30,000 people. And so, again, that would be the equivalent of if one kid in the class is acting up and the teacher makes the whole class pay the price. That's what's happening right now. And so I think the U.S. should tread very lightly. We got enough stuff already going on. We don't need to jump into that crap, right? And now anyway, getting into Van Jones. And then there's Van Jones, right? My beef with Van Jones is Van is always first in line to jump into some nonsense. He's always trying to be in a space where he thinks he can be the peacekeeper. But the problem is he never addresses the real issue. He just wants to keep other people comfortable. For me, Van Jones, his job is to make white people comfortable at the expense of other marginalized groups. So he's always going to be the person who comes in the room and tries to paint this whole story about, why don't we look at it this way? Why don't we look at that way? Why don't we meet in the middle? Even when it comes to racism, let's meet in the middle. There's no middle to meet on. And so what was so interesting when you saw that clip of him at the March for Israel rally, whatever they were having, first of all, it should tell you something when you're on the ticket and then you have open bigots that are also on the ticket and right-wing extremists also on the ticket. All y'all on the same ticket. That should probably tell you something about exactly who it is you're standing behind. And even for a lot of the people who are standing behind, you know, Israel, so be it. I hear that aspect to an extent, but a lot of people even have that information kind of mismanaged. And again, it's playing into the whole big bad wolf scenario where we're going to paint the Palestinians to just be 100% the aggressors and the people from Israel to be 100% not responsible for what's happening. And so, again, you're seeing a lot of white nationalism in a lot of this, which is very, very interesting. So what I found so interesting was Van was giving that speech. And then he started talking about, you know, he doesn't want to see anybody killed. Let's have a ceasefire. And what did you see the crowd do? The whole crowd lit that man up. All right, this black man in front of all these white folks. And they were no ceasefire, you know, F ceasefire, no ceasefire. They want to continue blowing up stuff. And I was like, see, that's what happens. You get into these spaces and think because you done got some favor with a few white folks, you can just say whatever. But understand, they always get back on code when it's time to be racist and when it's time to be terrible. And he had to learn that the hard way. So the rest of his speech pretty much got muted. Nobody could hear a word he was saying because they let him have it. So understand, whatchamacallit, sometimes you don't always have to break your neck to get into some of these spaces that you're fighting to get into. And so what I also found very interesting too, because again, remember, maybe I lit him up before because he broke his neck to apologize to the Jewish community on behalf of black people, saying that we didn't speak up enough. And I'm like, see, this is the stuff that I'm talking about. Like, you were playing these mind games and everything. And somehow when you do that, now you're painting black people to somehow be a part of the problem. Now, so you're mad because black folks don't want to stand behind watching people in hospitals get bombed. Make it make sense. Don't speak on my behalf, Van. Okay, especially because I already see who you lay down with. So no, you don't get to speak on my behalf. And so it's just, I don't know. I've always just had smoke for him. When I went to that one event, it was like him and Jake Tapper were hosting this event. This is right after Trump won. I've told the story a million times. But I knew something was up when I went there, and there was nothing but white women in the crowd. I said, I thought he was, because I didn't know him that well or know of him that well. I was like, I thought he was going to be like one of them, like, people who's, about it. Because I saw him say the whole thing about Orange Man getting in was white lash. I'm like, oh, okay, he might be about it. We got in there. His justification for what happened was we didn't give enough, consideration to working class, poor white Americans and how they feel and so on and so forth. Meanwhile, we didn't watch all these black people get shot unarmed by the police every other day and all the other nonsense and all the policy and all the things that we talk about on this channel. But now all of a sudden, I'm supposed to take into consideration, the marginalized feelings of people that already don't like me because of what I look like. And that's the reason. So I have to give them sympathy, but they can always just stand on a pedestal and be 10 toes down with their racism and continue to vote for policy that continues to disenfranchise both of us, all because they want to stand, a pillar above everybody else, all in the name of whiteness. So I'm like, I can't do it with him. So, you know what I mean? I'm good. He wants to kumbaya on top of everything, but never address the policy, never address the structural issues, never address the foolery. And it doesn't work like that with me. Like, you can't get to happy without addressing what's structurally pissing people off. And that's one thing that he's just never learned. And now that he's got that $100 million from whoever donated and all that money, he's definitely bought out. So don't expect him for anything, right? And he get on my nerves too, because he always uses that soft voice. And I'm so glad that clip came out on Twitter today or yesterday. It's the clip of him from back in the day. He got the locks and everything. He was on the soapbox. You would think it's a different person, right? He's on there going off about what's wrong with the system and something. And I'm like, it's interesting because your voice don't sound like that now. He gets on these spaces and, well, what I think we as Americans must do is we must come together. We must share love. Like, understand when black folks be doing that, it's they only doing that to make sure white people feel safe. The signal to say I'm one of the good ones. You're safe with me. I'm one of the good ones. You can trust me. I'm safe. I'm fun. I understand everything. I'm more cultured than those people. So yeah, talk to me about your issues. And then so I'm good on it. And so that just kills me. I think when you try to brush over structural issues or brush over things that are oppressive, all with the kumbaya, we love each other talk, we can't get to that and all that symbolism until you actually fix the issue. And so it takes me back to the very last time I ever went to a march, because I'm at this point, I don't be marching. Just who do I write the check to? I'll do that. I will bring awareness on this channel. I will jump into other things and support different groups. But as far as standing out in the street and singing in electric slide, and I'm past it. And so I remember I was at a rally. This was right after Charleston. Which one was Charleston? There's been so many people that didn't died. Charleston, South Carolina, or North Charleston. Was that Walter Scott? I think that was Walter Scott. So I'm at that. If I'm wrong, somebody please correct me in the chat. The fact that there's so many, we can't even keep up with who done got shot and who done got killed. But anyway, so we're all at this protest and everybody's going off about all the things that are wrong. Here comes this older white woman. And I know she meant well. I get it. So she comes up and what does she do? She finds every random black person she can find. So she eventually comes to me and, you're my brother. You're my brother. And I'm like, man, like, and she wouldn't let it go. Then she want to hold your hand and look you up. You're my brother. And I'm like, ma'am, like, I get that. That's nice. That's lovely. But that's not what we're here for tonight. That's not what we're here for today. We are addressing a structural issue. If you want me to be your brother, then what I need you to do is go and advocate for policy to change this. What I need you to do is go and actually fight the system. Coming in here and giving me symbolism nuggets to make me feel good because you told me we're brother and sister, that doesn't change anything, because at the end of the day, you're going to go back to your neighborhood, and if you still see somebody suspicious, you're still going to be calling the police. So that's not how this works. And so she just knew that she had saved the world. I can just see her going to work and telling everybody how she stood in solidarity. And yes, I get it. Solidarity is beautiful. But again, symbolism nuggets don't do anything for me. So you got to actually come with some real, like, I'm past that. Like, I'm just not there anymore. And so, I was so annoyed. And that's pretty much what Van Jones does. He is all about symbolism nuggets. And that's exactly why the people let him have it when he started talking about ceasefire. Because understand, those symbolism conversations work both ways, even for terrible people. When you're trying to advocate for peace and advocate for things to be better, if people on the other end of the spectrum don't want it, they are still going to fight you. And so you saw all them people light Van Jones up real quick. They reminded him exactly who he was. He had to learn the hard way, right? And so, yeah, that man is paid off. He's been getting a good payout to sit there and say that nonsense. And so the other thing, again, because what's also annoying with all of this in regard to Gaza is, again, it's interesting what our media chooses to highlight, because just like I said on the last live, we still haven't heard a whole lot about what's been happening in Sudan, what's been happening in Ethiopia, what's been happening in the Congo. Like when we talk about Sudan, right, you've had 9,000 people be killed. and you had 3 million people be displaced. And this is all just in this recent year. Sudan has already had a lot going on for the last few decades. That's why we watch Sudan split into Sudan and then South Sudan. And there's still things going on, but it's interesting that our media has nothing to say about it. And that's because, again, the U.S. has no special interest in Sudan, right? In the same way that we have special interest in the Middle East, okay? That's what you call a financial nugget for us in regard to maintaining stability in the Middle East and everything else like that. That ensures that, checks are still going to be written. That ensures we still have a stake in the oil industry and everything else like that. Sudan, even though Sudan has all these minerals and everything else that, make the world go round, the U.S. has no special interest right now in Sudan. So they're not really putting a lot of effort into it, right? Ethiopia, right? Now, fortunately, with Ethiopia and the Tigrayan forces on November 2nd, they kind of signed somewhat of a ceasefire, right? But understand there's been 600,000 people to die since everything started. And what I would really love to, because I said this before, for people that are actually in these regions, I would rather you all share in the comment section what's actually happening, because again, U.S. media is so bought out. A lot of times I can only take what's presented with a grain of sand, because all of our major networks, whether it's ABC, CBS, blah, 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 CNN, MSNBC, I don't watch Fox News, but it's still an outlet that a lot of people watch. All of these networks are owned by larger parent companies, right? And so a lot of times you don't even really get honest news. I like Democracy Now! That's what I like to watch because it's a bit more unbiased and pretty straightforward in regard to what's happening. And sometimes the Young Turks, but they're okay too. But again, you're not hearing about what's happening. Even when we talk about the Congo, right? Understand since 1998, there have been 5.4 million people to die, right? And that doesn't include the million plus that died in 96. Remember, they've had these different events. So 96, they had, some military activity, and you had 1 million people die. And then they were able to kind of ease the tension. And then by 98, it springs up again, and it's just been ongoing and ongoing. So you've had 5.4 million people die, or really about 6 million plus people die since 96. 5.4 million people die since 98. And you still have another 5 million, specifically a lot of children who are displaced. And so understand, like, there's a lot going on in the world. So kind of just keep your eyes open. Understand that money, greed, it brings out the worst in a lot of folks. I'm going to pause and read some comments here. All right. My chat is already freezing. All right. I'm going to need this to act like it got some sense. All right. Let's see what we got here. Exactly, Gray Matters. He said America supposedly opposed to genocide. Right. We done been a part of so much genocide around the world. And it makes it so difficult to even as Americans, as much as as much as everybody stands against what happens, it's so hard because our tax dollars are funding all of that. That's what makes it so challenging. Even when you stand on the tallest soapbox and shout from the rafters what the United States is doing wrong, our tax dollars are still funding all this, right? Lord, it's crazy. Thank you, Rashida Tlaib. Thank you, Tammy T. That's who we were talking about, who got censured, for speaking out about what's happening to her family. It's so stupid. So stupid how they move in Congress. Let me see. B-Blaze, I actually agree with that. They said, and this is about Netanyahu, he's way smarter and more dangerous than Trump. He is, listen, Trump get on my nerves. I'd be lighting this man up, but Trump is just about Trump. Trump just wants to line his pockets, and he'll go wherever the wind blows, right? And I will say this too, even in regard, if the tables were turned and it was Republicans in charge of everything, the U.S. would still have the exact same response with Israel. The exact same response, because again, AIPAC has both parties bought out. So it wasn't gonna shift, right? Let's see. We're going to keep it going. Somebody said, go back to 1947 where the world problems began. I would go back before even that. I would go back to 1916. So I think when you have the end of the Ottoman Empire, then that's when you start saying, you see Russia jump in the middle of all of it. You see the UK jump in, everything in regard to what was happening with the land that is now Israel and the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. Like, you had all these larger powers jumping in the mix. And it was just like a rotating door of who's going to continue to put different leaders in, and, which leaders are going to more so reflect the interests of the respective countries that are now invested in these different places. Then the U.S. gets in the mix, and then it's just, it's a mess, right? Hot mess. Stellar Avenger said, social media is seen through a lot of the propaganda. And that's one of the very interesting things. And I think you see a very big generational divide as well. Because again, this is not, like I said, it's not 1991 anymore. You just can't put it all on the news and everybody buys it, because now we're in a space where information is accessible by many, many different outlets. Now, there's also a lot of misinformation and disinformation out there, but a lot of people are definitely going and looking at additional sources. And so our main news outlets are so bought out, it's very, very hard to take them seriously. And we recognize a lot of times that, you know, when it comes to trying to push a certain narrative, our media gets on code every single time. So again, going back to something like a 9/11, our media got on code right away, enraged all of America, get America so pissed off about what has just happened that we will be willing and happy to go and blow up whoever did this to us, right? And that's exactly how we got there. And so it's crazy. And even to the point where anybody who speaks out against the war in Iraq, anybody who speaks out against Afghanistan, you're going to be blacklisted. So we saw what happened to the Dixie Chicks, right? Let's see. Ahill said it's a ramped up demolition project. This is business as usual. It didn't just start last month. Exactly. Like, understand what's happening in that region has been ongoing. And like I said, once Netanyahu got back in office in 2009, he had a vendetta. I think that's a dangerous slope. When you have people who feel like they've been wronged and they come back into power, they become 10 times worse, because now they have nothing to lose. They already know what it feels like to lose everything. And so they don't want to feel that again. And they really like to push their weight around, really ensure that, yeah, their power is locked in. And so here we go. Like, it makes me think of even the whole Project 2025 in regard to what happens if certain people get back into office and certain groups get into power on a bigger scale. Like, yeah, Project 2025 will be very interesting. All right, let us keep going. I'm gonna keep reading these comments. We have so much to cover, so I don't want to spend too much time. Let me see. Sorry, I really need my glasses. Darius Level said, we have this false sense of security from these global systems of protection and don't realize how fickle peace really is. Based on history, wars and fighting is a part of, you know, human DNA. Like, it's always some mess going on. And that's why I'm always like, especially for a lot of US citizens who are always so ready to go over there and blow somebody's stuff up. As people living in the United States, again, the privilege we've had for so many years is every time there was a war, it never came on our soil. Other than Pearl Harbor, there ain't really been no attacks over here like that. And so I don't think people realize this is not the time period where these places didn't have air forces and navies and blah, 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 blah. And so, yeah, we could go and tear up their stuff and it could never find its way over here. Keep poking these bears. Like, I'm telling you, U.S. needs to move real carefully. All right, we have got to keep moving, but I appreciate all the comments that are in here. Somebody said Van Jones is tap dancing. Yes. Oh, don't even get me started on Michael Rappaport. That's another person I have no problem dragging. Oh, y'all know I don't like Michael Rappaport. I don't. Oh, don't get me started on him. I ain't liked him since I saw Higher Learning. He played that role a little too well for my liking, and it was convincing. And then he is one of those people who think just because they listen to hip hop music or they're embedded in a lot of things that are centered around Black culture, that they can just say whatever they want. And it gives them a pass to just sit here and jump into nonsense. And you see how quickly he also got on code once all this stuff started going down. I don't have time. Kate Franklin, that's a great question. Have you read King Leopold's Ghost? Good question. I actually have it. I'll show it to you guys because you guys should read it as well. Where I had it? I know I got it in here. Here it goes. Give me 1 second, I'm coming. Yes, this is a great read. King Leopold's Ghost, right? This tells you all about the nonsense that happened in the Congo and why Belgium is trash and why Leopold was trash and why, again, I don't want to hear crap about people talking about get over stuff and you cutting people's hands off because they weren't producing fast enough. And then you guys have chocolate bars to you know, commemorate that era, and you still sell them today, selling chocolate hands. And then you got a problem with the fact that people have a problem with that nonsense. 20, 30 million people killed, all in the name of being Christian missionaries. Like, psh. And when Leopold got a hold of the Congo, he thought it was just supposed to be his backyard. Like, he was just going to do whatever he wanted to do with it. And then Belgium was like, wait a minute, you're doing a little too much. We're going to take it over. And then they continued the same nonsense. Oh, you know, I be having smoke for people. Don't ever let me go on Jeopardy. They might send me out of there. I'm gonna be quiet. I'd never be able to just answer the question. I'm gonna have to give an explanation. Hakeem Jeffries. I want to like Hakeem Jeffries, but he too is bought out. He was one of the same people at them APAC experiences, and there's definitely a clip of him floating around talking about Israel today, Israel tomorrow, Israel forever, and he was bragging about all the stuff that they blew up back in the day. This is like from 2022 or something, and I'm just like, all right, them checks are clearing. I want to like Hakeem Jeffries, but in the event that it came up to him to do the right thing, I don't trust him to do the right thing in that. Like, he would continue to play the same game, right? All right, we honestly have to keep moving on because we're already 44 minutes in, and I still got. Actually, I got through a lot of pages. It's not too bad. Okay, let's talk Diddy because that's what most of y'all are here for. I'm going to read the article, and then we are going to talk, my friends. When I tell you it's a lot going on today, All right. Let us see here. This is coming out of the New York Times, which normally I'd be having smoke for, but all right. Sean Combs is accused by Cassie of rape and years of abuse in a lawsuit. In the suit, the singer says Mr. Combs, known as Puff Daddy or Diddy, subjected her to a pattern of control and abuse over about a decade. Mr. Combs vehemently denies the allegations. Sean Combs, the producer and music mogul who has been one of the most famous names in hip-hop for decades, was sued in federal court on Thursday by Cassie, an R&B singer once signed to his label, who accused Mr. Combs of rape and repeated physical abuse over about a decade. I'm going to stop saying this R word because apparently they're telling you to not say this on YouTube anymore. So we'll just call it the R word from now on. In the suit filed with federal district court in Manhattan, Cassie, whose real name is Cassandra Ventura, and who had long been Mr. Combs' romantic partner, says that not long after she met him in 2005, when she was 19, he began a pattern of control and abuse that included plying her with drugs, beating her, and forcing her to have sex with a succession of male prostitutes while he filmed the encounters. In 2018, the suit says near the end of their relationship, Mr. Combs forced his way into her home and R-worded her. After years of silence and in darkness, Ms. Ventura said in a statement, "I am finally ready to tell my story and to speak up on behalf of myself and for the benefit of other women who face violence and abuse in their relationships." In response, a lawyer for Mr. Combs, Ben Brathman, said, "Mr. Combs vehemently denies these offensive and outrageous allegations. For the past 6 months, Mr. Combs has been subjected to Ms. Ventura's persistent demand of $30 million under the threat of writing a damaging book about their relationship, which was unequivocally rejected as blatant blackmail. Despite withdrawing her initial threat, Ms. Ventura has now resorted to filing a lawsuit riddled with baseless and outrageous lies, aiming to tarnish Mr. Combs' reputation and seeking a payday." Douglas Wigdor, a lawyer for Ms. Ventura, said the parties had spoken before the suit was filed. Mr. Combs offered Ms. Ventura 8 figures to silence her and prevent her from filing this lawsuit, he said. She rejected his efforts. Ms. Ventura's case is the latest in a series of sexual assault civil suits filed recently against prominent men in the music industry, including Steven Tyler of Aerosmith and the I didn't even know about this. The executive L.A. Reid and Neil Portnow. That's the second one for L.A. Reid, I think. The former head of the organization behind the Grammys, Mr. Portnow, has now denied the accusation. Mr. Tyler and Mr. Reid have not responded. Mr. Combs, 54, founded Bad Boy in 1993 and became one of the primary figures in the commercialization of hip-hop, working with stars like the Notorious B.I.G. and Mary J. Blige. His net worth is estimated to be as high as $1 billion. And last year, Forbes calculated Mr. Combs' annual earnings at $90 million, attributing that amount largely to his former partnership in the liquor brand Ciroc that is owned by the spirits giant Diageo. I don't know. Mr. Combs, who in his career has variously been known as Puff Daddy, Diddy, and Love, may be the most famous music executive of his generation. But the suit depicts Mr. Combs as a violent person who, beyond repeatedly assaulting Ms. Ventura, asked her to carry his gun in her purse. And the suit suggests he was responsible for blowing up the car of a rival suitor. In one incident, the suit says Mr. Combs dangled a friend of Ms. Ventura's over a 17th floor hotel balcony. In naming additional defendants, the court papers assert that the others who worked with Mr. Combs had helped him to control Ms. Ventura at times by threatening her with retribution, like suppressing her music if she did not obey his orders, or by helping to conceal his behavior. The suit, which names Mr. Combs and a number of his associated companies as defendants, seeks unspecified damages. According to Ms. Ventura's suit, she was swept into Mr. Combs' jet set lifestyle not long after meeting him and signing with Bad Boy, which released her debut album in 2006. But the suit says he soon began to assert an extraordinary level of command over her life, In addition to controlling her career, he paid for her car, apartments, and clothing, and even had access to her personal medical records. According to the suit, the results from an MRI scan she had for memory loss, possibly caused by drug use or by a beating she said she suffered from Mr. Combs, went directly to Mr. Combs. Mr. Combs also provided Ms. Ventura with copious amounts of drugs, including ecstasy and ketamine, and urged her to take them, the suit says, and often became violent, beating her multiple times each year. The suit says Ms. Ventura never went to the police because she feared it would merely give Mr. Combs another excuse to hurt her. In one incident in Los Angeles in 2009, the suit says Mr. Combs became enraged when he saw that Ms. Ventura had been talking to another talent agent, then pushed her into a car and kicked her repeatedly in the face, making her bleed. According to the suit, Mr. Combs then had his staff bring her to a hotel room to recuperate for a week. She asked to go home to her parents, but Mr. Combs refused, the suit says. The suit says that after seeing the violent repercussions of rejecting Mr. Combs and the extent to which he would isolate her from her support network, Ms. Ventura felt that saying no to Mr. Combs would cost her something: her family, her friends, her career, or even her life. And though she tried to leave Mr. Combs, the suit says he sent his employees to lure her back. In one incident described in the court papers, Ms. Ventura says that in early 2012, Mr. Combs grew so angry about her dating the rapper Kid Cudi that he said he would blow up the rapper's car. Around that time, the suit says, Kid Cudi's car exploded in his driveway. Through a spokesperson, Kid Cudi confirmed Ms. Ventura's account. This is all true, he said. A few years into Ms. Ventura's relationship with Mr. Combs, the suit says he began coercing her to engage in a fantasy of his called voyeurism, in which she was directed to have sex with a succession of male prostitutes while Mr. Combs watched, masturbated, and took pictures and shot video. According to the suit, Mr. Combs called these encounters freak-offs, which involved costumes like masquerade masks and lingerie. They continued for the years, taking place at high-end hotels across the United States and in Mr. Combs' home. The suit says that he instructed Ms. Ventura to search the websites of escort services to procure male sex workers. Drugs were supplied at these events, which Ms. Ventura's suit says she took because they allowed her to disassociate during the horrific encounters. According to the suit, Ms. Ventura would delete the videos from these incidents that had been shot on her phone, but Mr. Combs told her he still had access to those videos, and on a flight once made her watch a video she thought she had deleted. The suit says that as a result of these sexual encounters in different cities, Ms. Ventura was a victim of sex trafficking. The suit also accuses Mr. Combs of sexual battery, sexual assault, and violations of New York City's gender-motivated violence law. Ms. Ventura's suit includes several accounts of her unsuccessful attempts to escape Mr. Combs' control. In one example, the suit says that during a freak-off at a Los Angeles hotel in 2016, an intoxicated Mr. Combs punched Ms. Ventura in the face, giving her a black eye. He fell asleep, and she tried to leave the room, but Mr. Combs woke up and followed her into the hallway, where he threw glass vases at her, sending glass shattering through the corridor, according to the court filing. The hotel security cameras captured the incident, but the suit says Mr. Combs paid the hotel $50,000 for the footage. The court filing says that in 2018, after Mr. Combs and Ms. Ventura met for dinner, he forced himself into her apartment and R-worded her while she repeatedly said no and tried to push him away. After that, the suit says she left him for good. Ms. Ventura married Alex Fine, a personal trainer, the following year and now has 2 young children, according to the complaint. Her association with Bad Boy ended in 2019. Ms. Ventura's case, like other recent sexual assault lawsuits, is being brought under the Adult Survivors Act, a New York law that allows people who say they were victims of sexual abuse to file civil suits after the statute of limitations has expired. The 1-year window to bring cases under this law ends next week. The law is cited in Ms. Ventura's complaint, and in a statement she addressed in its importance. With the expiration date of New York's Adult Survivors Act fast approaching, she said, "It's become clear that this was an opportunity to speak up about the trauma I've experienced and that I will be recovering from for the rest of my life." I need to take about 5 sips on that one. Okay. Where do we start? My God. I'm going to say this. Even if everything that I just read was totally untrue, Diddy has so much that's already working against him, right? A whole lot. And this is not the first time we've heard his name in all kind of accusations. And I mean, when a lot of times when you're just talking in the industry, his name has come up in a lot of nonsense, right? And so, in my opinion, this does not look good for him on top of the reputation that he already has. And I think this is one of the reasons why you've seen him kind of really try and do this big rebrand in the last few years. You know, everything from, remember when he decided to call out the music industry and talk about all the artists that had been being starved out of their profits? And we did a video on it, and I'm kind of like, yes, but not from you, because you still haven't done these people right in regard to their contracts and everything else, right? And then we started seeing him start giving the people their royalties and their publishing back. We saw him try to jump into politics before the 2020 election and talk about how black people had been left out, which is very true, but again, wrong messenger. And then you started seeing him do the donations. I think he gave Howard $1 million. He gave another $1 million to another HBCU, right? You know, he changed the name to what, Brother Love, and everything is all about love. And then sadly, when Kim Porter died, you kind of saw him start making all these poems about love. But I just think that he has so much that works against him. You have Kamora Lee Simmons, who definitely wanted the death of Kim Porter to be reopened because she thinks that there's foul play around it. I'll Be Sure has said the same thing in regard to there's questions around everything. Now, we see that the stuff with the Tupac is kind of fluff, and Homeboy was just a little cuckoo with all of that. But, I mean, there's just so many people. You have Aubrey O'Day from Danity Kane, who talks about, you know, Diddy pretty much wanted her to do a bunch of different favors, and that's one of the reasons why they just never connected, because she wasn't having it, right? You see somebody like Dawn, who at one point continued to work with him. Now she really has no association with them and actually stands behind Cassie on this. The Kid Cudi piece with the car blowing up. What? Like, and then one of the things that Aubrey shared in regard to Diddy giving all these people back their royalties, she didn't get hers, but she said one of the elements with it all was that everybody had to sign NDAs in order to get it. She chose not to, and so she didn't get her royalties. But I just think that there are so many layers that unfold in this conversation. And so this will be a very, very, very interesting one to follow. And when you really start thinking about different things, like what I could never understand, especially with Cassie, because for some reason I really never understood why Diddy had went so hard pushing her. And this is not to talk about her as an artist or anything, but it just was very interesting to me, because once they started dating, I was like, she's like really, really young compared to his age, like the age difference. And I get it. Some folks date a lot younger, but the energy around Diddy to me has just always been real off. And a lot of people have said different things. I think when your name comes up and a lot of people have terrible things to say all the time, then yeah, it's very easy to believe everything that I just read in that article, right? I'm going to sit back and see how this one unfolds, but I would not put a lot of that past him. Diddy has ego. It's always been that. We've seen it in real time. We've seen it with the reality shows. We've seen it with how he treated the band and how he treated Danity Kane and how he treated Day 26. Remember what happened with him and Lauryn Gibson when the Making the Band episode was happening, and Lauryn had the guys rehearsing for 8 hours and one of them got injured. And then somehow Lauryn and Diddy had some kind of argument. They cut the cameras. You heard some kind of commotion, and then we didn't see Lauryn for a good minute, right? Something like, I would not put it past him. And then again, I'm not trying to be this person to tear the man down. He just got too much associated with his name. Even the conversation of, okay, him making her carry his gun in the purse, he puts that in the lyrics anyway. And I'm not even going to be one of these people who tries to use people's lyrics against them, but he's talked about that. We remember the club shooting, right? Back in 99. He had J-Lo tied up in that one too. This will be interesting. Very interesting. And the fact that now this is a conversation of human trafficking laws because you're flying people around to do this. The cars ain't looking good for him. And again, I think when you've done so many people wrong, even if you haven't technically done anything wrong in this instance, it's really hard for people to give you any grace or any favor because you have this long trajectory of things. Think back to even when they had the reunion tour, which I'm still pissed I ain't go to, but when they had the reunion tour and he had the documentary about it, look at how many people he had to go and make amends with before they would even agree to be on the show. So this is going to be very, very interesting to follow. And I've said that a million times, but I don't have any words on this one. Like what? And also, folks, the other thing too, I need us to get into a space where when certain allegations start to come out, the idea of automatically kicking down or tearing down the person that's making the allegation just because you like the celebrity or because, you know, everybody's trying to take the man down. Yes. Is there a system that's trying to take a lot of us down? Absolutely. But understand, sometimes there are people in the collective that make very stupid choices and do horrible things and should be held accountable in the event that the things that have been said about them is true. So let me pause and read some comments. But this is going to be, woo, Lord, this has been a wild day. Diddy was not on my bingo card today. I totally was going to spend some more time on some other things. Crazy. Jesus. Plus, when people start moving real different and start talking about love, and I'm in a space of love, and it's all the ones who always be doing all that soft talking and stuff be just as cuckoo and crazy. So, and I'm so mad because I really did like the last album. I just talked about how good that last project was that he just came out with. Now we got this going on, right? Whoo, man. And you know, because Diddy has so many ties, understand, I think this would open a door into so many other people that are probably tied into some messes. Well, it ain't just him. If it is, I'm telling you, there's some layers to this one. All right, I'm gonna read some comments and we're gonna keep it going. Somebody said, "Is that why he's suddenly giving back to publishing?" I can't. I don't know, but I mean, it fits that idea of rebranding. Like it seems like he's been on this for at least maybe the last really around 2018, 2019, which would be around the time that Cassie left. You know, that's when you started to see the rebrand that he started to have, right? So, man, that's whoo. Jeez Louise, you done blew up somebody's car? Somebody said she's mad that sleeping for tracks did not work out. I don't even think it's that. It's really honestly not even that. Cassie was never going to catch on anyway, just because to me, I wasn't really. She has some songs that are decent, but she just, the magic just wasn't there for her. And I don't think her having a failing music career was going to be the reason she would come out with something like this, right? This is a big jump. Like, understand when people step out and make such accusations about individuals, especially somebody like Diddy that has a lot of weight, that has a lot of power, that has a lot of connections. I mean, that means you're willing to lose everything if it goes wrong. So, yeah. All right. People are going to disagree with me on some of this, but I don't know. And I think too, because I know people are going to be like, why didn't you leave? Why didn't you leave? I think people also need to understand when it comes to abusive relationships, you know, understand when people jump into relationships, there is a love that's there. And sometimes for people who are in unhealthy relationships, even when they want to get out, there's things that always pull them back. Sometimes it may be financial. That's one of the reasons why, especially when we go back to the time period before women were allowed to have bank accounts or allowed to have credit cards. That's why so many women ended up staying in the abusive relationships they had to stay in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s, right? Because if they left, you know, especially in the era of one income households where it's the man doing all the work and the mom is taking care of home, a lot of times there'd be nowhere to go. There'd be no way to take care of yourself. So a lot of folks kind of get locked into certain situations. And again, then the conversation of even like a blackmail, if you're on video doing all of these compromising things, you know, the threat of things like that getting out. And we've seen other people kind of manipulate people. So I think when it comes to abusive relationships, it's a multi-layered conversation. Everything isn't always a one size fits all. Somebody just wants a check, because at the end of the day, a check still doesn't even heal the kind of nonsense that some people deal with, right? And that goes both ways, as well as men being in relationships that are abusive with other women, as far as the woman being abusive to the man, or being conniving, or vice versa, where it's the man doing what he's doing to the woman, or in same-sex relationships, especially in same-sex relationships, there's really a lot of elements of abuse. And so again, there are layers to this one. Right? Blew up a damn car. Yes, blew up a car. That's the one I'm stuck on. And by Kid Cudi confirming it. Man, that's some crazy stuff there. Man. Blew up a car. I'm still stuck on that part. That's the part I'm not going to get past. Blew up a car. Imagine that. That just made me think of the series finale of New York Undercover. Remember how that episode ended where the two got married, and then out of nowhere, what's his name gets the call by the lady with the shades, and he's like, hello, and she's like, you're next, and he's like, what? And then he looks, and then the car blows up again. Woo. Okay. My God. They're like Whitney Houston at them speeches. My God. This is a lot. Escorts, drugs. What is going on around here? What is in the water? It's supposed to be Thanksgiving in a few weeks. We're supposed to be in happy spaces and loving with our families, and man, Lord. Somebody said Cassie documented it all. I agree, Julian. You do not need to believe in the allegations, but you don't need to also say nasty things. Like, I think in a situation like this, because it's so sensitive, sometimes it's better to just, if you don't really have the most, you know, reasonable opinion. I think we got to get out of this habit of thinking everybody's a gold digger when they make these accusations. And some people still in these things for years. Some people think they're healed. They think they're healed and they think they're good, and then they really think about it like they're like, no, I'm actually not. It took them long enough to get out of the relationship, and they're just so happy they get out of it. They find a safety net with somebody else, and they're trying to rebuild, but they haven't gotten over whatever initial trauma that they're trying to press through, and that's how we get here. You know what I mean? So yeah, everybody's gonna feel what they feel, but nah. Woo! All right, I'm ready to move on. I don't want to keep talking about this one. All right, this one vexes my spirit here. All right. Yeah, he just got a lot going on. And even when you think back to like even working with Usher when Usher was little and trying to make Usher lose his virginity, you're supposed to be helping the kid build his craft as an artist, and you over here trying got hiccups. You over here trying to make him do everything else. Like, all right. Jeez Louise, man. All right, shifting gears here. This is more so, again, U.S. relations. Now, we saw that current president had a meeting with the prime minister of China. Again, I think people need to understand diplomacy is everything. Right now, based on the way things are going, the U.S. and North Korea currently have smoke. The U.S. and Russia currently have smoke. The U.S. and China have smoke that they're working through. And then depending on what happens in the Middle East, there's additional smoke that we may end up having with Syria, with Iran. Depending on what happens with Israel, Lebanon, and Jordan may come into this conversation. There's a whole lot of different things happening. And so I thought it was a very important meeting for the two of them to have on yesterday. But what I found very interesting and what I think is really foolish is I watched the press conference. And then what did our media all do? Literally every question that was brought to current president, it was all these questions that to me, I feel like poke the bear again in regard to the United States relationship with China. If we're in this space where we're trying to use diplomacy and ease the tension that currently exists, because I don't think y'all realize the United States does not want war with any of these places. And the United States cannot afford to go into war with everybody. We don't have it. We already, like, it's not there. We ain't got it. Yes, we got all this money we spend on our military, but we also don't have the manpower to go against a lot of these countries. And so you would think after trying to ease the tension between the U.S., we have all the nonsense going on with our pact we have at Taiwan and everything. What does our media ask? They're going to ask Joe Biden, well, do you trust him? Do you trust him? Do you still consider him to be a dictator? Like, it was like every question they kept asking him were questions where if Joe says the wrong thing, that could pretty much damper and burn any element of progress that was just made in that meeting. And I'm like, I need even the media to understand, like, we're in a very slippery slope right now. And we're not on an end where if we get into some stuff, everybody's going to have our back. Please understand, if the United States ends up in any kind of war, whether it be with China, whether it be with Russia, North Korea, understand half the countries in NATO are not jumping in. I know we have this agreement and the NATO thing is if anybody do something, we jumping in. The way these countries are going to be like, actually, we don't want that smoke. Because again, technology has changed. The conversation of war is different. The United States has had the luxury to go and blow up and bomb all of these countries that don't have the same military industrial complex that we do. But guess who does? China. Guess who does? North Korea. Well, we thought Russia did. I don't know what's going on with them in Ukraine, but still, Russia still got some element of what they got going. And so it's kind of like with everything that's happening, we really don't have time right now to get into any kind of internal international conflict. So can we not continue to poke the bear, please? Like, damn. Like, again, this smoke we just don't need. I think a lot of people still think this is the 1950s and we just gonna win everything we jump into. We've been losing a lot lately. I don't know if you paid attention to what happened in Iraq and Afghanistan, right? You know, all these different missions we keep jumping into. Like, relax. My God. And then George Santos, I'm gonna be quick on him too. I don't know why he's even still in office, but he done got some additional nonsense in regard to some of the stuff he's been a part of. This was interesting to me. So on October 21st, 2022, Redstone bank account received a $25,000 wire from an account affiliated with contributor number 2. From there, and this is the court documents, by the way. From there, $25,000 was transferred from Redstone's account to Representative Santos' personal checking account. On October 26, 2022, Redstone bank account received a $25,000 wire from an account affiliated with contributor number 1. On the same date, $25,000 was transferred from Redstone to a different personal checking account owned by Representative Santos. After the $50,000 from Redstone was deposited into Representative Santos' personal account, the funds were used to, among other things, pay down personal credit card bills and other debt, make a $4,127.80 purchase at Hermes, and for smaller purchases like OnlyFans. Look, he said he needed to be entertained, okay? Entertained after 11 p.m. He needed something to help him go to sleep. Sephora, and meals for parking. The ISC did not find evidence showing that the contributions received from contributors 1 and 2 were used to support Representative Santos' candidacy. In addition, a senior member of the representative campaign staff told the ISC the only independent expenditure that was helping the campaign was the NRCC doing the thing they would do for Young Guns, but I do not recall Redstone strategy. So as we know at this point, he already has a bunch of charges, right? There was an effort by Congress to remove him. Congress decided to play safe and say, no, he can stay. Now, at this point, Santos has done everything under the sun, right? Oh, also he got Botox. He was using the money to pay Botox. So understand, when you run for office, you are not allowed to use campaign finances for anything other than the campaign. Because why? You are running, and when you're getting donations from donors and you're soliciting and you're canvassing going door to door, when people pay you that $5 or $10 or $25 or whatever it is that they pay you to support your campaign, that means it's almost like a contract. The money that people give you for your campaign is for your campaign, not for you to go and get Botox, not for you to go and get OnlyFans, which at this point, why are you even paying for any content when all that kind of stuff is just floating on the internet for free anyway? And so, again, you have that going on. You have this man lying about his mom dying in 9/11. This man didn't claim he was Jewish. This man didn't claim everything under the sun. He lied about where he went to school. He lied about where he worked. He done lied about everything. And you would think he'd be out of there. And so when they took everything to a vote, everybody still let him stay right in there. I said, wow, imagine that, right? And it was a bipartisan decision as well, too. I was like, y'all are crazy. Y'all just be letting all kind of nonsense slide. And you wonder why the United States is in the nonsense it's in, because look at who we got out here, right? Even when you think about like Senator Mullin, right? That's the other guy who he and the Sean O'Brien guy from the Teamsters, when they were having that hearing and they were about to come to blows, right? You know, they started having it. They already got smoke with each other on social media, right? So they already have smoke with each other on social media. And during this hearing, which I forgot what the hearing was about, they started to use their personal vendettas. And, since you had so much to say, do you want to take this opportunity to handle it? And the guy's like, we can finish it right here. Well, stand your butt up then. Will you stand your butt up then? And then the senator got up and they was about to fight. They over there stressing Bernie Sanders out. Bernie's trying to calm everything down. Because I was like, listen, if they start throwing hands, I'm trying to figure out what Bernie's going to do. Because Bernie is one step from the casket himself. So it's kind of like, oh, Lord. And so I guess they apparently are going to have coffee. They were trying to originally schedule a fight. I'm like, y'all just, all the people in power give me a headache. Like, this is where we're at in our politics, right? Hot mess. And also, speaking of politics, I see Tim Scott has also dropped out of the race. Now, if you follow my live, I told y'all one by one, certain folks would start getting pushed out. This is the same kind of conversation we can have with like a Van Jones. With Tim Scott, like, one, he had no policy. And I think the challenge with people who run on the GOP side that are not white, they always have to try their best to appeal to that white voter demographic and appeal to whiteness and say all the things they think white people want to hear. And so you watch this man run on no policy, where, again, right now the move in regard to the conversation of white nationalism is everything is punitive. And so you watch him kind of jump on that. We saw everything happening. You had the strikes. You had all these different things with the auto industry, with the actor strikes and everything else like that. And he thought he could take a page out of the Reagan book and go and say, well, you strike, you lose your job, right? And then even, oddly enough, I sat and I watched the entire GOP debate because I was like, let me just see what it's going to look like in 2024. Like, how crazy is this all about to get? I'm already not excited. I don't like nobody, but here we are. And watching that debate, even when they got to the conversation of women's reproductive rights, and it was interesting because I was like, y'all almost got Nikki Haley sounding like she's making sense. And y'all know I don't like her either. But one of the things that she had said was when it came to like abortion rights, she was saying if certain states have decided, and she's talking about the people who have voted on different things, if the people have voted for whatever it is that they voted for, I'm not going to be one to overstep, because now she's talking about states' rights. And so it was interesting she had that response. And then when it was Tim Scott's turn for the same question, he was like, nope, we're going to ban it all. National ban, 15 weeks. I was like, yeah. All right, here you go with these talking points again, where you're trying to play this role of what you think white America wants to hear. And it's so interesting because, understand, like I've said before, when you break your neck to be a mouthpiece for white supremacy. And the reason I say that, because some people are going to say, oh, are you just saying that because he's a Republican? Oh, I'm saying it because of that. And I'm also saying it because we've seen many instances where there have been conversations of race and he either straddled the fence or tried to gaslight everybody and act like there's not a problem. He's one of the main people who said the United States does not have an issue with systemic racism. The United States has no issue with racism at all, right? And so it's crazy. And it's like, understand, when it comes to how race in the United States works, yes, Can you get some leverage by being a mouthpiece for white supremacy? Yeah, all kind of doors will open. Yes, you can get some Paris Denard treatment, and doors will open. You can get some Van Jones treatment. Doors are going to open. But at some point, recognize that, if they can get a white person to do it, they will gladly replace you. And so that kind of made me think of even like a Herschel Walker, right? Herschel Walker only got into the race, or they put him into the race because they recognized, okay, when Warnock ran against the other guy, it didn't quite go too well, right? It didn't go too well. So, okay, maybe if we put a black guy against Warnock, black people we're just too stupid to really use our discernment with who to get behind, and maybe that can dip into the black vote. And so they throw Herschel Walker out there, who's out there just saying anything, out there at the school. I was like, woo! By the way, I love a good accent. I love a Southern accent. Like, my cousins be cracking me up. I got one little cousin when she's like, Cousin Michael. I'm like, where did this accent come from? I love an accent. But anyway, yeah, so they got Herschel Walker out here just saying any and everything, right? And then it didn't work out. And then where is he now? You don't see them using him from anything else. They realize, okay, he's not going to be the person that gives us the leverage we want. And so they toss him off to the side, right? So just understand, like, it's interesting. Tim Scott did this whole spiel about how the United States is not racist and everything is all good and dandy. And so my thing is, well, if you said all the talking points that this very demographic loves to hear, why is it that you never polled over 3%? Why is it that you're not in the running? Because apparently you're beloved, right? You have this wonderful image, and you've said all the things that they want to hear, every last thing. You align with Orange Man on everything that he agrees with. And hey, that base still really loves that man. And it's highly likely that he's probably going to be the GOP nominee, most likely, unless something magically shifts right now, right? So just like you and Ramaswamy, y'all have all said all the things that align. And even Ramaswamy, whatever his name is, Ramaswamy is ahead of you. So I wonder why you're quite not catching on like everybody else. Be for real, right? You should have known when they started questioning why you weren't married and everything, what that was about. They tried to use the conversation of family values and, we're concerned because he's not married. He doesn't have a wife and everything. And then, he magically shows up with this white woman that's supposed to be his girlfriend and everything else like that. And I'm like, y'all really think they care about family values? Did you see what the last president had going in his household? Every wife he met from cheating on the previous one, right? So I don't want to hear it. So very, 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 very interesting. It's a mess out here. By the way, I don't feel like covering the election in 2024. I'm gonna let y'all know right now. Y'all might not hear too much of my opinion because my brain capacity is tired. Like 2024 is gonna be a headache. I'm saying this now, but we're gonna be right on here covering everything. Anyway, let me read some comments here. And this strain coming all out my teeth. All right. Somebody said, why are people still victim blaming? She was still a teenager when she met him. It's so weird to say she should have chosen better. She's literally a child. You see this every single time there's some kind of situation. It happens there, even with the R. Kelly situation. And I think the R. Kelly situation is very layered. I think additional people should have gone down with him because it wasn't just him by himself, right? There were a lot of enablers. But, even when you talk about the girl that was in the video that was 14, you had people lighting her up. Well, she was hot. She knew what she was doing, blah, 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 blah. And at the end of the day, I'm like, it's still a 14-year-old girl. It's still a 14-year-old girl. It's still a 14-year-old girl. Like, be for real, right? So, man, people move funny. And understand, 19 is an adult, but 19 is young and impressionable. None of us would imagine if you were at this big age that you're at now and you still move the same way you did at 19, right? Things would be a mess. So, yeah, we'll just see how that unfolds. Oh, exactly, E. Allen. You make a lot of uninformed decisions at 19. You get 30 and realize just how abused you were. Like, yeah, think how many people have been groomed in some of these situations. And I'm just speaking in general at this point, where you have people who, perfect example. So thinking back to when I was still at Howard. Now, I was a resident assistant. So when I was a resident assistant in my dorm, and I was resident assistant for 2 of the years that I was there, my junior and senior year. So I worked in a freshman and sophomore dorm, right? And so when we had the night shift was from 8 p.m. to 2 a.m. on the weekends, 8 p.m. to midnight on weekdays. And so what you would always see is there would be the freshman girls that were like 18, right? Some probably still 17. And they would always have this boyfriend that's like 35, And he would come and do whatever he does and then leave. And it's interesting because with visitation at the dorm, like visitation would end at midnight on the weekdays and 2 a.m. on the weekends. And if people didn't have their guests out of the building by a certain time, sometimes they could get in trouble. And it would be so interesting because a lot of times when these young girls would come in with these 35-year-olds, these 40-year-olds and everything like that, these men didn't even have the respect for them to keep their visitation. And they would come back down at 2:30, 3 o'clock. You got to go to the room and look, you got to go, right? There was just no respect for even like the dignity of these young girls. And a lot of these girls, a lot of times, were like young or insecure, or this is their first relationship, or this is the first guy that they've even experienced sexually and so on and so forth. And then you get that attachment. And think about like your first love, right? Think about how crazy you were when you got dumped or you split if you really were with them, long way. And so like you see how many of these girls end up like stepping outside of themselves and making really, really foolish choices, all because, here's some older person that has done whatever. And it works both ways. So it's not just men towards women, but it's also women doing the same thing to young men, right? We're starting to see a lot of stories where a lot of men are coming out years later talking about how, women that they knew when they were 11 or 12, had them doing certain activity. And the women are in their 20s and in their 30s. So just understand with this conversation of grooming and stuff, like it's a real thing, right? All right. All right. Let me see. Yeah, somebody said the media is pro-war. Listen, understand when the United States goes to war, that's a boost for the economy if the war goes well. So yeah, that's why we're always working on next to jump up in there. And it's interesting when you even see people run for office. That's why I always say, like, if we're trying to do this whole diplomacy thing, why is it that we're trying to make peace and somehow keep stability? But then as soon as these people get in front of their crowd or in front of their campaign audience, they start doing, we're going to be tough on this person. We're going to tell them this. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. I'm like, here y'all go. Y'all love to poke the bear. Like a mess. Like the media frames things so terribly. And with everything happening in the country. Now, I just spent all that time on that Whoopi video talking about how, inflation has increased 644% since the 70s. The cost of housing has increased 1,608% since the 70s and everything else like that. Wages have only gone up 17.5%, even though productivity is going up 61.8%. And so you have all these different things where people are broke, even with the baby boomer demographic, right? A lot of them are in some danger with a lot of things, depending on what happens with Social Security and how Congress moves, depending on what happens with Medicare, Medicaid, like all these different services, where a lot of these things that we thought we had an abundance of are kind of in a scary place where these things might not even have enough funding to stay in operation. So a lot of folks are about to be in a terrible predicament if things continue to go in the manner that they go in, right? But again, folks want to keep jumping in the war and push our weight. Understand, I feel like you can live in a world where there are more the United States ain't got to be the one superpower in charge of everything. We can live in a space where there is more of a collaborative approach between all of the different countries. And that's why I'm like, I don't know why we keep trying to do this thing where we're so pressed to jump into stuff. Like, why? And it's all the people that won't even be here in 5 years anyway, because Father Time is coming. The main one stirring up everything. Y'all want to set everything up for there to be a war just for you to get the pass on because Father Time called you home. Be for real. Right? And then y'all gonna go and you're gonna send these 18-year-olds right back across the water to go and fight some random people that they don't know, in the same way that the people on the other side are being forced to fight some people that they don't know, all in the name of the egos of the people who are in charge. Right? Stupid. Y'all are going in on this chat. Like, y'all are going so, like, my chat can't even keep up. It keeps freezing because y'all are lighting it up in here. Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, these are the people they put in Congress. Just nonsense. That's why I'm like, I know people are over politics, they're over all of it, but y'all keep tapping out. You see who we keep getting in the door. Understand, Marjorie Taylor Greene got in there because she ran unopposed. Right? Look at all the stuff she's in charge of. Right? Not talking about Nuck if you buck. Oh, Bookster 95. I actually think that's a thing as well. Somebody said Tim Scott will probably be someone's running mate, vice president. My guess would be if he is anybody's running mate, it's DeSantis, or if Christie makes it far enough. Christie, I don't see it with Trump for some reason. I think Trump got somebody else. I don't see Tim Scott making it with Trump. I don't see that part. If that does become a thing, it would only be because Trump wanted to somehow utilize him to win over some black folks that already have smoke for the Democrat Party. But yeah. Let me see. Somebody said Bernie was like the parents trying to break up the siblings. Bernie was frustrated. Stop. You are a senator. You are a senator. No, we're not going to do that. No. And then they still kept going. The guy was like, anytime, any place. And I started thinking about my favorite singer. I'm like, oh, all right, quote it. But man, America is off the chain right now. I'd be like, where do we live? Like, what is this? What is all of this? Somebody please make it all make sense. We're tired, right? Man. They said they're gonna handle it. You do this right now. So I was like, well, so were y'all gonna scrap in the chamber? Like, okay. Man. Let's see. Oh crap, why is my chat hiding? I can't see my chat anymore. What did I just do? I just did something. Show all controls. Okay, well, I can't see my chat for some reason. I don't know what the heck I just did. All right. Well, we just gonna keep it going then. How about that? God darn it. Okay, well, I'll have my chat scrolling through my phone. Hopefully that did not close you guys out of the chat. Hold on, give me a sec. I'm always doing something. Every time. Always. Hold on, give me 1 second, y'all. Okay, here we go. All right, well, at least the chat is still here. Okay, good. Okay, anyway, let us keep going. I'm gonna just have to read the chat from my phone. I'm always doing something. Somebody said all the senators need a civics class or two. A lot of Americans in general need a civics class or two because a lot of folks have forgotten how all of this works, right? Somebody said bye Joe Manchin, good effing riddance. He's gonna try to run for office. If he doesn't do it now, he's gonna do it in the next election. I don't know why people keep doing this thing where first of all, Manchin done stirred up so much controversy and nonsense anyway. Things that could have gotten done in 2021 and 2022 and 2023 between him and Sinema and how much they stood in the way of progress of a lot of things, right? And now all of a sudden you want to leave the party and then talk about you're going to go on a campaign around the country and see how we can bring people together. Y'all be so full of crap. Get out of here. You done slow down a lot of progress. A lot of the nonsense we're in right now is because things that could have helped got railroaded. That's the other thing I was going to say with this Whoopi video. I'm sorry, I'm still sitting on it because a lot of folks got on my nerves in the comments. I kept getting so many comments where people were like, well, if you don't like it, do something about it. And I'm like, first of all, every single time there is policy on the table that actually can fix a lot of the wrongs that are happening within the United States, especially when we talk economics, which demographic is the first to get in line to vote against it or to put somebody in who's going to sabotage all of it? It's not millennials and it is not Gen Z. That's all I'm saying. It really ain't even the younger and the Gen X either, right? Baby boomers, specifically the white ones, right? Anyway, let's see here. I'm going to read a few more comments. We're going to keep it going. Let's see. I'm pissed that my chat is not on my big screen anymore. Imagine that. Yes, off the chain. Exactly. Queen said workers are striking left and right. This is a form of revolt. And see, even with that, I'm glad you shared that. Like, understand that when you talk about the landscape of the United States, just some decades back, like, I mean, the way that these unions used to be set up, that's how workers' rights were protected. That's how their wages were able to continue to grow because they would hold these companies to a certain standard where it's like, we're going to strike you. You need to raise the standards and raise everything, right? That's how they were able to get additional benefits and protections and to protect their pensions and everything else like that. And so understand, as cuckoo D-list actor Ronald Reagan got in office and started busting up all the unions, and then you have all these companies start shifting or shipping all the jobs overseas, and you start having the deregulation, and now companies can do whatever they want. You saw a lot of unions disappear. We still have some unions here. You still have things like the Teamsters. You still have things like the Teachers Union, and we've seen what's happening with SAG and the Writers Guild and everything else like that. But there's so many companies where there's not a lot of unions anymore, and that's why when you see a lot of people try to form unions, the companies really try to fight the people on it. Like, understand like that those unions from back in the day were ways that really ensured that the workers' rights were protected. That's one of the things that would eventually contribute to the general or generational wealth of some people. Now, I've talked about this a million times on the channel, but understand that also Black folks were left out a lot of these unions back in the day. Now, as time would progress, we'd be welcomed in, but a lot of folks were not welcome into some of these unions, and some of these unions actually use their manpower to work against Black people collectively. So when you talk about what's a good example? Ford had a situation. There was a Ford plant in Richmond, California at one point, and when they decided to kind of move and to Palo Alto and create a new, bigger plant, the union fought and clawed to ensure that, Black folks that were leaving the Richmond plant would not be able to come to the Palo Alto plant and have any management positions. They could only get the volunteer positions. That's stuff that the unions had lobbied for. So you see a lot of times there's different layers in how that conversation works. Let me see. Shifting gears here. Oh, Usher. Oh, not Usher. I'm sorry. Keke Palmer. Oh, here we go. Another one. Keke Palmer, Darius Jackson. Now, this is one, I'll be honest, I did not really follow a whole lot. And so I don't have a whole lot to say, but it's interesting. I will say what they have is not a healthy relationship. And I don't think they need to ever be together again. But I think the challenge is because of all of the chaos that they have, there is still a baby that is involved. And so for the two of them, they are going to have to figure out exactly how can they maneuver in a way that is best healthy, where they can successfully co-parent this child, right? And I think it also sucks when social media gets a hold of things, especially with these celebrities, because once there's an audience, once everybody knows what's happening, you get a lot of people who stir the pot, a lot of people who instigate. And that's why I'm not a fan of social media when it comes to people's personal business. I'm not a fan of it at all. And I think, again, you're seeing a lot of weird conversation around this one as well. I was looking at just where people were standing on this. I'm like, some of y'all have very terrible takes. So, like, some people just, I'm starting to be convinced that some people are really just terrible people. I'm like, the way some of y'all move is really interesting. And so, again, even with that one, we'll see how this one goes. But I don't know, something's in the water. Like, it's a lot of weird stuff going on with all of that. I know Usher's like, why am I in this? I'm over here catching strays, right? And so, yeah, I think, apparently she's hosting the Soul Train Award, so I'm sure she's going to reference something in that. But I think in these situations, like, one, I do believe the allegations against Darius and the things that have been said about the brother. But I think, again, when you start incorporating the public in your personal business, it makes things 10 times worse. And now that the mom's in it, and this person's in it, and this person's making statements, it just makes stuff so much worse. So I think sometimes when couples are having the issues that they're having, it helps sometimes to kind of keep as much as you can out of the public eye. And one of the things I saw really interesting in regard to the conversations around the physical abuse, right? I'm just going to say this, because some people were saying, I guess he showed some pictures of some things that Marcy had. I wasn't there, but I will say, I think also understanding conversations of physical abuse, there are also what you call defensive marks when people are defending themselves and end up scarring up somebody else. I'm just going to put that there, and that's all I'm going to say. So we'll see how that one unfolds. But based on the clips I heard, there's a lot of instability and all of that, and it's not a healthy environment for anybody to be in, period. Let me pause and read some comments, and then we're going to keep it moving. Let's see. Oh, at least the channel on my phone work a lot faster than one of my, whatchamacallit. Somebody said, you can thank the unions for 40-day work weeks and 2 days off. Well, first give some of the smoke to freaking Henry Ford, too. Dang it, he's the one who started the 8-hour workday. Like, he said, listen, I need y'all to make my 4T model, so we're going to lock this in, and this is what the workday is going to be like. I was like, Lord, make me sick. Somebody says, students and grads, we got to start a revolution to eliminate student debt. I ain't paying that ish, especially seeing how much our tax dollars are used to harm people and not benefit us all. And I think you just need enough of the right power players in positions of power. Right now, there's two, and this is not even just about student loan debt. This is just about a lot of the things that people want in regard to regulating what's happening in healthcare and making it actually affordable for people, right? In regard to what's happening with the overinflated housing that's going to continue to just keep climbing, right? All of these different things. When you have so many people who represent the old guard still in power and they're trying to hold on to how things used to be because it benefits them, but it's at the expense of everybody else, then no matter how much protesting people do in front of these offices and how much standing and blocking the freeways people do, it's not going to change a lot until you get the right power players in these spaces. And so I need our elected officials to represent the actual demographics of how the United States looks. So when you're talking about everybody who's in Congress and you're talking about the average age of Congress, that doesn't represent the average age of the United States. And you have a lot of people in there, the Mitch McConnells and Jim Jordan's a bit younger, but the Jim Jordans and the Lindsey Grahams and a lot of these people who are in a space where their main interest is to line their pockets and make sure that their people are good and the hell with everybody else. And then they'll do this respectability game and pretend that they are these God-fearing Christians who stand on morals. Like a perfect example is even the governor who was just elected in Louisiana, which, dang, man, we just talked about Louisiana 2 lives ago. Remember when I was telling y'all about the elections and which ones to pay attention to? Well, anyway, the cuckoo guy got up in there. But the governor of Louisiana right now, understand now, remember, we passed this big infrastructure bill that's supposed to go and help to build freeways and update our railroad systems and continue the work that Kamala crew's been doing with replacing all the pipes and everything like that. The up-and-coming of the current Louisiana governor who's been elected already said he's going to pretty much refuse all of those funds until Louisiana puts in legislation that bans abortion. So it's just like these are the kind of lunatics that are in power, right? And they continue to play these little stupid, silly games at the expense of everybody else. This is why I'm always like, just check into what is happening. Nobody is saying that you have to be a disciple behind any kind of candidate. Nobody's saying that you have to blindly follow a candidate or a party, but it's all about just paying attention to what the heck is happening and recognizing that even though we want to stand on our soapbox and we want to hold folks accountable in regard to what's happening, to me, it can't come at the expense of the very collective that you're fighting for. That's where I'm at. So I get it. There's people who have smoked for a lot of folks who are in positions of power and they want to make statements and they want to do this. We're going to sit this one out. We're going to show a lesson. I've said this since 2018. A lot of folks are cementing the nonsense and now we're watching things be cemented. And while you're trying to make your statement, at some point, you won't have any leverage to make a statement because at that point, you will have no power in anything, even when it comes to voting at some point. So just understand. Lock into what's happening and strategize at least. Let there be an end result. Even when it comes to a lot of what's happening, one of the things, as much as I know that the white boomers been catching it, but I always keep thinking of like our grandparents and the nonsense that they're going to have to deal with as time progresses. And like understand, especially with something like Social Security, a lot of us are in a position where some of us are helping pay bills for parents, aunts, uncles, grandparents, you know what I mean? Great grandparents, helping people stay afloat, especially people who are on fixed incomes. Recognize that if certain folks get up in there and continue to gut Social Security, which again, right now has a 10-year lifespan, if it continues at the rate that it's continuing at, what do you think is going to happen when they run out? And then everybody's grandparents no longer have Social Security. Somebody has to foot the bill. Somebody has to foot the bill for things like Medicare, Medicaid, as far as people who are getting, at-home care from nurses and everything like that, or paying for the nursing homes. Those are expensive, assisted living, all that kind of stuff. The equipment for, the hover rounds and the wheelchairs and the walkers and, the oxygen kits and all the stuff that you need, like all of that stuff. Let the right people get up in there and keep stripping stuff. It's going to be a world of chaos when people who are already stretched thin financially have to now start taking care of their parents. And there's no additional funding coming in from the state or the federal government. Like, understand. And then that system's already screwed up anyway, because as soon as you pass a certain threshold of some kind of element of monetary success, you get pushed out of the program. So there's a lot going on. All right, let's see what we got here. Humphrey Osai, who said those marks were minor defensive marks. That's why they're on his neck and arms. I'm sure his face was fine. We're here. We're here. We see each other. Like that's kind of where I'm at with it. I thought when they were gonna post some stuff, I thought he was gonna have a busted eye or something. But to me, I'm sorry. At this point, like, recognize a lot of folks we're in this weird space, especially with men. I love us, but some of us be tripping, where for some reason, the minute somebody comes out against one of us, some of us just collectively move in this herd mentality and just automatically assume that we are just 100% not responsible for what's happening. And I get it. Some people may say that's the conversation on the other end of the spectrum. And why is it that you should always just believe this, that, and third? But I think sometimes it helps to have a nuanced approach. A lot of folks don't even have a nuanced approach to any of these conversations. They just automatically go straight to level 10 and go 10 toes down. We saw what happened with the conversation around Meg and Tory Lanez, right? And what was very interesting, a lot of the smoke that Meg got had nothing to do with the actual shooting. Everybody wanted to talk about who she slept with, which had nothing to do with anything in regard to a gun being shot at the end of the day. Maybe there's a conversation about beef or drama that stirs up a conversation where they could get to an argument. But at the end of the day, it has nothing to do with the trigger being pulled. And so it's interesting to see how people kind of move, right? And I'm like, there's not brownie points you get from any of this. There's no points to gain. So I'm just like, I need folks to be a bit more nuanced. That's all I'm saying, right? Let's see. Where are we at here? Somebody said no, Andrew Yang went full on right wing like Tosi after 2020. Yeah, Andrew Yang, yeah, it was a great idea with the $1,000 a month, but everything else he had to me was nonsense. He's in the way as well. Let's see here. We're gonna keep going because I got a few more things to cover. Yeah, social media has really done a number on how people critically think about a lot of what's happening. And I think a lot of people, especially with Twitter with the blue checks where people can get money for engagement, you have a lot of people who are purposely just putting anything out there because they know if they can piss off enough people, it brings engagement and boom, you get a check. Now, apparently these checks ain't too big. I've seen people talk about they got $4, 6 million impressions on Twitter and you got $4, but enjoy. Let me see here. Where am I going with this? Oh, this was really important. I want to cover this one. This goes back to our conversation about the 2 poll workers in Georgia, right? Because now there's a lawsuit. Let me read the article real quick and then we're going to chat. 2 Georgia election workers to seek millions from Rudy Giuliani at a defamation trial. Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss will seek $15 million to $43 million from Rudy Giuliani at trial. Former Georgia election workers Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss will seek between $15.5 million and $43 million from Rudy Giuliani at a defamation trial slated to begin next month in Washington, D.C. Federal court attorneys for the mother and the daughter wrote in court documents filed on Tuesday. A federal judge has already found Giuliani liable for defamatory comments he made about the pair in the wake of the 2020 election, including unfounded claims that they fraudulently manipulated ballots on election day in front of cameras at the State Farm Arena. The civil trial, scheduled to begin on December 11th, will determine the full scope of damages. In court papers filed Tuesday, attorneys for Moss and Freeman said they expected their case to last 2 or 3 days, and they held out the possibility of calling Giuliani to the witness stand. Judge Beryl Howell, who will oversee the trial, has already leveled harsh sanctions against the former New York mayor over his failure to comply with discovery requests, awarding Freeman and Moss north of $230,000. According to Freeman and Moss's legal team, the range of $15.5 million to $43 million cited in court papers includes costs associated with Moss's loss of work and her need to secure and relocate from her home, where ABC News interviewed her in 2022. Meanwhile, other civil and criminal lawsuits have left Giuliani, in his own attorney's words, in financial difficulties. Among other obligations, Giuliani faces a $1.4 million lawsuit for allegedly failing to pay his former attorney, Bob Costello, a former business associate, in May, filed a sexual harassment claim against Giuliani seeking damages. And in October, Hunter Biden sued Giuliani for unspecified damages, accusing him of mishandling personal data belonging to the president's son. Giuliani has denied all claims in each of those cases. The former mayor also faces a criminal racketeering indictment that Fulton County District Attorney Fonnie Willis returned in August against him and 18 others, including the former president Donald Trump, for efforts to overturn the 2020 election results. In the state, Giuliani has pleaded not guilty. So I want people to remember just exactly what it is the 2 of them went through. First of all, I will say, I think it would have made more sense for them to sue Fox News and Newsmax, only because Giuliani's already broke. He doesn't have $43 million, so it's not going to be much that you're going to be able to get out of him. So I would have actually added Fox News and Newsmax to that because they also pretty much stirred up the narrative that he put out there. But understand the nonsense that the 2 of them dealt with. And if you remember, you got to see them speak during the actual hearing with all that they dealt with. These are 2 women who are on camera. They're on camera moving the cases that, have everything secure, because that's a part of the protocol where they move the cases and lock everything up when it's the end of the day. Somehow that turned into they are stealing ballots and they're moving stuff illegally. And then even with the lady having the flash drive, Giuliani or one of them said, yeah, they're moving it like it's crack cocaine, like all of these racial overtones that are put out there. And these women had death threats. These women had people showing up to their house. These women had people calling their houses and this, that, and the third, and people calling for them to be executed and arrested. all kind of crazy things. I think they deserve every dollar that they sue for. Because again, what you've seen happen, that now sets precedent for what we're starting to see in elections, where now a lot of poll workers are like, I'm not doing this ish. I'm out of this. Like you can forget it, because we're now in a space where so many have had threats against them, people showing up to polling stations with AR-15s, threatening everybody. It's just, it's ridiculous. And now that has set precedent for future elections where people think that's okay, where you can go and intimidate the people who are just trying to participate in what we call the American process of democracy. And again, a lot of that was very racially motivated, because these are two Black women. Of course, white race, especially with the fact that the election did not go the way that some people wanted it to go, they're going to somehow try to blame those two and somehow say this is the reason why. I don't know why they keep trying to paint this idea that there's all this election fraud with 2020. Like, again, people are not willing to go to jail for any of these candidates. Nobody, well, I'll take that back. We've seen January 6th, but people with common sense are not willing to go and commit, elements of voter fraud to the tune of millions of ballots in the name of getting somebody into office. Nobody, because none of these politicians are worth it. And they're only in office for 4 years anyway, unless they get reelected, or if they become or try to become dictators and try to change a lot of policy. I'm not going to name names, but somebody's on some weird stuff in regard to the details and the plans that he has for running for reelection in 2024. A hot mess. But yes, our politics in the U.S. is so tribal at the moment. It is. I will say the pendulum always ends up swinging back the other way. The United States has been in a space like this before, many times over. So yeah, it looks really chaotic right now, but eventually things start to swing back in another direction where things start to level off. But right now, it's just not a great time politically in this country. All right, let me read some comments here. I hate that I somehow screwed up something on here. Let's see. Yeah, with Yang, I like the idea of the $1,000 a month. I just didn't agree with him on anything else, but I thought that was good, right? Somebody said people's brains are fried. They really are. Yeah. Oh, RFK. That's all I got. Let's see. Yes, no more dynasties, please. I agree. Like, once you get out of office, just please leave and let the next wave come in. No more, please. All right. Let me see here. Yeah, somebody said poor Rudy. He can't afford good hair dye. Rudy Giuliani is just. Did anybody watch the docuseries they had on him? I forgot what network it was on, but that man is freaking. A lot of these people are loony. Like, that's my favorite word all the time. But a lot of folks are freaking loony, and the fact that they get into these positions of power and really influence and get to dictate how things are going to go that affect all of us. That's the scary part. Like, my thing is, just put some people in power that have common sense and are not half crazy and are thinking about the long term. A lot of people who are in positions of power right now are thinking about themselves in the right now, but never think about how does this affect the next generation? How does that ensure that the country can sustain itself? It's all about me, myself, and I, right? We've become a very individualistic society. It's all about me and mine, F everybody else. And I think that's why we've run into a lot of the problems we run into, because that idea of collective reasoning and collective thinking about what's best for the country is no longer a thing, which is why people continue to vote against things that would make society a lot better, not even just in the United States, but would eventually play a role into how things move globally. There's no reason why the world should operate in the way that it does right now. No reason. There are more than enough resources for everybody on this planet, but greed, right? Let me see. Okay. This is another one. Damn. Okay. This is the last heavy story, and then the rest will be more so celebrity related. But like I said, I don't just talk celebrity stuff. I still want to inform people about things that actually matter around here. We can talk celebrity stuff, but there are other issues we also need to pay attention to. All right. So this is coming out of Capital B News. All right. And so this is a longer article. I might condense this a little bit. Pollution is driving today's reverse Great Migration. Now, understand Great Migration, that's the migration of Black folks moving from the South up north, west, and to the Midwest, right? The first Great Black Migration built the Midwest. In return, Black communities received pollution and toxic contamination. All right? Englewood, Chicago. Deborah Payne's neighborhood of 35 years on Chicago's South Side no longer exists. Dirt piles tower where families once gathered for Sunday dinners in single, multifamily homes. Concrete lots cover backyards where children watch fireworks and caught lightning bugs. Streets that maintain generations of Black Chicago raised and left empty railway cars. Today, less than 10 blocks from Payne's old neighborhood sits the repercussions of diesel pollution caused by the expansion of the rail yard. Over a decade ago, the city, along with railroad giant Norfolk Southern, remember that big giant fire from some months back in Ohio? Norfolk Southern, all right, announced a plan to buy out Payne's 12-block community of more than 200 households to replace it with the freight yard. In the 95% Black neighborhood, roughly half of the residents own their homes. This is starting to sound a lot like what we talked about in my review of Silver Dollar Road, right? It's starting to sound a lot like what's happening with the eminent domain conversations and buying people out. At the time, residents organized to halt the takeover, packing one another's living rooms until no couch seats were left. They lost a fight and hundreds of families were displaced. Today, the idle rail cars filled with everything from oil to Amazon trinkets and the big rig trucks that come to and from the rail yard expose remaining residents to more nitrogen dioxide than virtually anywhere else nationwide. That's my story. It happened to me. It happened to my neighborhood, recalls Payne, who starred in The Area, a documentary about her community's fight. But it's happening all over. Okay, looks like I got something else I need to watch. What's happening on Payne's beloved Normal Avenue is anything but normal. For many across the U.S., yet for too many Black Midwesterners, it's practically expected. Payne and others descended from the thousands of families who migrated to the Midwest from the South during the Great Migration of the early to mid-20th century. Manufacturing and railroad jobs became a lifeline and a pathway to economic stability. But in recent years, these once industrial hubs have become ground zero for environmental injustices, ruining the quality of life of workers and their families who fueled these industries, all while Black employment in the industries has sharply declined. The difference of Black Chicago isn't unique. The disappearance of Black Chicago isn't unique. Over the past several decades, according to the 2019 Policy Analysis of Education, Economic, Environmental, and Health Metrics, the Midwest has developed as the worst region for Black people in America. Residents in Gary, Indiana, Detroit, Cleveland, and St. Louis are leaving the region in droves. Combined, the 5 cities' Black populations have declined by 800,000 since the year 2000. With 60% of the fall happening since 2010, reversing the journey of their great-grandparents. Thousands have moved to the South, the only region with more Black people migrating in than out since the year 2000. In many ways, environmental injustices are driving exodus to cities like Atlanta, Houston, and Dallas, says Aisha Butler, a housing activist in Payne's old community. From the air that smells like rotten eggs baking in the summer sun to the toxic metals that cake soil and pack into family walls, and the deadly illnesses that follow, the reasons for leaving are piling up. Today, 10% of residents living in the Midwestern states are Black, but Black people make up 30% of the people living in the region's communities deemed disadvantaged by climate change and environmental injustices, according to Capital B's analysis of the White House Climate and Economic Justice Tool. They are also 33% more likely to receive lung cancer diagnoses and the cancer most associated with air pollution and exposure than Black people living in the country's 38 other states. In the absence of jobs, people are left saddled with pollution and without access to housing that once was within reach. The housing ownership gap between Black and white in the Midwest is now wider than any region. In the aftermath, Black Midwesterners and the cultural influence they provided disappeared as people leave in search of places where it's easier to breathe clean air and find affordable housing and non-toxic jobs. When we leave not only to the suburbs, but to Texas, to Atlanta, I know because my family did it. It is because we see that Chicago and these other cities are not here to uphold Black life. Sitting 30 miles southeast of Chicago, Christopher Curie's hometown of Gary, Indiana, was created for industry. In 1906, the largest corporation in the world, U.S. Steel, founded the city to house the nation's largest steel plant, Gary Works. And mucus-colored smokestacks attracted workers from all over the country. At a time when worker protections were weak, the industry relied on underpaying and overworking Black laborers to thrive. Tens of thousands of Black people would settle in Gary during the Great Migration, including most famously the Jackson family, and also Curry's grandparents, who hailed from Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi, and Oklahoma. By 1930, Black people made up 18% of the city. By 1970, it was 53%. But within a year of the city becoming a major Black city, mass layoffs came. By the time Curie played in Gary's soil as a child in the late 70s, the town once known as Magic City had received a new nickname, the most miserable city in the U.S. The steel mill is where both my paternal grandfather and my dad worked for most of their adult lives. By the time I was coming of age, it was clear that we as kids needed to work or needed to look elsewhere for somewhere to work. Okay, I'm going to fast forward a little bit just to get to the pollution because they're giving you everything here. All right, there's a segment, and I'm going to post this link in the description as well. There's a segment in here talking about demolitions and the mark of gentrification. So talking about all of that aspect, I'm just going to zip through the article just for the sake of time. Let me see. Detroit is far from an anomaly. Hundreds of thousands of properties have been toppled in cities like Chicago, Cleveland, and St. Louis. The practice of widespread demolitions has not only limited housing stock and worsened housing access, it has also increased environmental injustice. From St. Louis to Detroit, city contractors tasked with demolitions rarely follow health procedures, allowing dust particles from the lead-filled homes to cake neighboring properties. Detroit zip codes where the most demolitions are happening are also those with the highest lead poisoning rate. Also understand with lead poisoning, the damage is irreversible. Cities hope that razing neighborhoods would allow them to be reborn again. In Detroit, the city's most prominent revitalization attempt, a major reinvestment in the auto industry, has damaged another black neighborhood and left remaining descendants or residents' homes dusted with yellow paste-like air pollution. All right, I'm going to actually stop just because there's a lot in here. I'm going to have this link added in the description. But the point that I want to get to is, we've also spent a lot of time talking about what happens as a result of, again, corporations being deregulated. Again, deregulation in regard to what's allowed to go in the air, what's allowed to go in the water. And a lot of times what you have seen is when these companies and these corporations come into these spaces and are looking for a place to expand, it's always black neighborhoods. Now, that's a result of redlining and recognizing that, okay, well, we can't build the factory in the blue zone because that's top tier property. And we really can't do it in the green zone because that's even more top tier. But we can do it in the red portions because these are the areas that need extra help anyway. And so you end up having all of these places where, again, they build these factories and they have everything where there's no regulation, there's no really good follow-up when it comes to safety inspections, and you have chemicals leak into the rivers. That's how the Flint River became what it became. Even when we go back to the conversation of Flint, how do we get the Flint water crisis? Hey, the folks in charge, which again, everybody just got off with that one too. The judge and everybody just decided nobody's going to be charged. Everybody's going to drop all the cases. It is what it is. Sorry it happened. Wish you the best of luck. Have a happy holiday. But the folks who were in charge, one of the main folks in the mayor's office and everything like that, or in the governor's office, all these folks had connections with people who had companies who wanted to do projects. So they decided, let's jump into this random project, not because we needed it, but just because it's a great way to line our pockets. And so in order to do this, we're going to have to change Flint's water source from the river that they're currently using and switch it over to the Flint River. Now, understand the Flint River was pretty much the river that all the toxins from GM came into, right? Remember, before all the big factories in Flint closed, you had all these big auto industry plants and everything, all kind of toxins, metals, oils, and chemicals and everything just continue to go in that river. The Flint River is to Flint what the Anacostia River has been to DC, right? It is, you just don't want to deal with it. But anyway, they switched the water source and everything else like that. And now you have this terrible water going into the pipes. What does it do? It corrodes the pipes so quickly. And before you know it, now you have all these residents who are getting water that's brown and red and gold. And there's all these chemicals in it. And the people are lying, telling the people, oh, it's fine. You can go ahead and drink it. Just boil it. You can still bathe in it. And you have people getting lesions and rashes and lead poisoning and all kind of everything you can think of under the sun. And even though they eventually switched the water source back to the initial river that they were using, I think they're actually pulling it out of Lake Michigan. Understand that pretty much the damage has already been done to the pipes. And even though you have all, I guess, better water coming through these pipes now, the pipes are already corroded. All this stuff is still going through it. That's how we ended up getting the Flint water crisis, right? And so you've seen that happen in so many spaces where, again, corporations get to do what they want. There's no regulation. Nobody's looking out for the people. And who ends up being collateral? Black folks, right? And so it's another conversation when you think about what this also mentally does to people and psychologically, and how it also correlates into the behavioral patterns that exist with Black youth living in these spaces. And then another conversation is also talking about what we've seen happen in areas that were heavily redlined. These are the areas that have no green space, right? You're starting to see them try to shift it now, because now that there's this big move for people to come back into the city, because now the city's a cool place to be. And you're seeing, a lot of white folks move into a lot of these areas and a lot of these cities that were predominantly Black. Now they're trying to find ways to put grass in fields and plant trees, but understand for decades and for generations, none of that was there. And so this is one of the reasons why when you go to a lot of metropolitan cities, the temperature of the city is higher than the temperature in the area around the suburbs, because in a lot of these cities, there's no green space. There's nothing but glass, metal, cement, the asphalt that breaks the street. And so it's just the sun just sits and bakes. And that's why the temperatures in a lot of places, like if you go to, if you talk about the Bronx, the temperature in the Bronx is going to be a lot higher than the temperature on Long Island for various reasons, like for a reason. All right. Think about Levittown versus the Bronx. Right. So you just see a lot of nonsense that's happening. Right. I'm going to pause and read some comments because I've been saying a lot, but just understand, like, when I tell you Black people collectively are on the receiving end of so much nonsense, the more you dig into policy, because that's really where I'm at this point. Like, people, I've learned that to say a lot of these things, you're going to have to back it up because people want to fight you on every corner and they think that none of this stuff is true. Somebody was so stupid on that Whoopi video. I'm going to keep going to this Whoopi video. When I posted the chart of the median wealth of Black and white families, where it says, like, white families at the time had like $170 something thousand and Black folks weren't anywhere near that. Somebody was so foolish. They were like, these numbers are skewed because there has never been a law that allowed Black people to make less money through minimum wage than white people. That's illegal. And I'm like, what are you talking about? First of all, this is the end result of redlining. This is the end result of what happened with policy. This has nothing to do with the minimum wage. But again, some folks are so out of the radar in regard to reality because they've had the privilege of not having to worry about what it is that other groups have to deal with, especially if it doesn't affect them, that sometimes getting this information sounds like this dude is freaking crazy. And it's just like, whatever. All right. I'm trying to remember. Let me double check, because I think the original water source for Flint is not Lake Michigan, because Lake Michigan is up. There's somewhere else. Let me see. Flint, Michigan, and this original water source. I just want to make sure I'm not telling y'all a fib on here. Okay, Lake Huron. There we go. Lake Huron. So it was Lake Huron, not Lake Michigan. My bad. Right? And they switched it to the Flint River. I just want to clear that up before somebody comes on here and starts trying to fight me in the comments. All right. Let's see here. Read some comments. Dang it, now there's an ad playing, and I can't even skip the ad on this page because this thing is frozen. And all right, whatever. Jules T said, but individualism is as American as apple pie. Selfishness. I agree. Christine said there's an Inglewood in Chicago. Yes, but it starts with an E. It's not like the one in California. All right. Let me see here. Y'all still on this yang? All right. Yes, these cities suffer and nobody is held accountable. Yes, Snyder is definitely and this is Jules T again. Snyder from Michigan was a total sleaze. These are some terrible people that just do things, and they do it because they know they can get away with it. And they also do it because they also just don't care about certain demographics, right? They just don't care. It's ridiculous. Let me see. Somebody said, never stop dragging these ridiculous comments. And y'all know I don't even normally respond to comments that don't make sense. I just, because if I make like the lives are different because it's live, it's in real time. You're literally watching me as I say it. But those videos that are pre-made, the way those I's are dotted and those T's are crossed. So I don't even really have to argue back and forth with people in that, because it's like, you just don't like the information. There's nothing I can do about it. But I was just like, so many people are just clueless. One person was like, when's the last time you had a job? I was like, really? Ask about me. Anyway, Hey Bibby says, concrete heats up the area, making it worse during the heat wave. Then paying a higher tax bill with low median wages. Exactly. Oh, this is a great. Oh, this is so good. And there's. I have to find the channel because there was a channel that did such a good video on this. This is from Soul Mega. Yes, no one cared about Atlanta's infrastructure until gentrification. The street MLK's house and church on makes me so sad. That's it too. Atlanta has such a very unique setup with how it's laid out, because it's already super spread out and everything. But it's interesting to see how now that you're seeing a lot of folks start moving there, because you got a lot of white people moving there as well, right? They're trying to somehow address a lot of the issues in regard to infrastructure that existed from previous decades, right? Because Atlanta, as great as it is, I love Atlanta. You know, me and my cousin, we always be going back and forth about which place is more off the chain, DC or Atlanta, because of how it was laid out and how it has been set up. There's a lot of things that are not really, there's things that could have been laid out better, right? So even with how the freeway system there is, it's chaos, right? Even with the railway system they have, as far as they have what, MARTA even how Marta's set up because how Atlanta's so spread out. It's a very interesting dynamic to how Atlanta is set up. And this is nothing against the people of Atlanta, but it just goes to show, like, man, I'll come back to it, but there's a really good video on that. If I can think of the channel that just talked about the flaws that exist with the layout of Atlanta and how it kind of more so disenfranchises and makes things a lot difficult for people. Man, if I can find it. Same thing with Houston and how it's laid out. Like, Houston is a great city, but when you talk about the flooding, the situations that they run into with how the city is laid out, and even with the walk score with Houston, it has a very challenging walk score. Walk score meaning people that can walk and take bikes. Like, and I get it. Houston, Atlanta, two cities that are super, super spread out, and Houston is just massive, right? A lot of the decisions that were made with a lot of these areas, when you're talking about what was happening in the redlined areas, it's all rooted in policy that was rooted in anti-blackness. And it plays a role as to why certain areas they maneuver in one way and other areas don't, which is absolutely crazy. All right. I'm gonna keep it going. Yeah, the Flint piece pisses me off because everybody got off. Everybody literally got off. And what pissed me off even more, there were so many people who just didn't really understand what these people were dealing with. And folks are like, why can't they just move? I'm like, understand. Once you have a house that you own and all of the pipes are compromised because they're corroding, there's lead in the water, all of that has to be replaced. And the fact that it's the entire city, everybody's property value goes down. And people are not moving to Flint because at the moment, there's not really a large job market there. And so people, in order to leave, you want to sell your house, but you can't sell your house if nobody wants to buy it because it's deemed as undesirable because of the issues that happen with the pipes and everything else. Like, I don't think people understood. Like, a lot of people were locked into a lot of situations that are hard to get out of. I think we have to get into a space where you have more empathy for the experience of people. And a lot of folks always come from these very judgmental spaces and think, well, you got yourself in there. You just, if you could see how many people told me I just need to work harder in response to the Whoopi video. And I'm like, I wasn't even complaining about nothing. I was just laying out what was going on structurally. And people kept giving, again, these anecdotal responses. I'm like, understand, everybody's experience is different. But the one thing people can agree on is the numbers, the stats, because those are things that don't change no matter who's the anomaly. Yes, are there going to be people who are an exception to the rule when we talk about how structural systems can screw people over or benefit others? Yes, but at the end of the day, the numbers behind the conversations around these structures and these systems and what happens economically, what happens with the price of education, what happens with housing, what happens with childcare, what happens with healthcare, those are things that you can't really waver and shift on in regard to your opinion, because at the end of the day, your anecdotal conversations can't measure up to a conversation around stats, facts, and numbers, right? I'm a numbers guy. Make it make sense. All right. We're going to keep it moving because it's already 11:22, and I got a few more people to cover. Yes, people really don't have empathy around here. People are selfish. Freaking selfish as hell. All right. Oh, this is actually kind of cool. Andre 3000. So Andre 3000 has talked about, he has a new project coming out, but it's, from what I understand, it's him playing the flute, which I think is very interesting. Now, he pretty much was talking about how he just feels he's at an age where, he initially was trying to make another rap album. He just felt it wasn't going to be authentic, and that based on his experience in his life, he's just not in that same space. And oddly enough, I would have been very interested to see lyrically what he would have rapped about, because he's definitely been on this very, very interesting journey over the last few years. He's kind of become very elusive and kind of in his own space, and people just randomly will see him walking wherever, and he'll stop and talk and say what's up and keep it moving. Like, I would love to kind of hear where he's at creatively with hip hop, but I also love the fact that he's found a passion for the flute, and that's what he wants to do. I think that's really dope as well, right? So like I said, I'm interested. Right. And I also think, again, the industry does a number on people. And I think for him and his peace of mind, he decided to step back. Right. Outkast has already broken every record known to man. To me, they're one of the greatest rap groups out there, period. They are in my top 3 favorite rap groups of the modern era. My 3 favorite rap groups are Outkast, Tribe Called Quest, and Little Brother. Those are my 3. Like, those are my 3 favorites from the modern era. And I think Outkast has done so much. So yeah, I get it. People want another Andre 3000 album, but he's in a different space. So let him be in it. I think when you can get to a space where your art is beneficial for you as an artist, that's when it's the most genuine, and that's when it's the best. When you don't have to meet the requirements of what the label is rushing you to do, and you don't have to, continue to try to hold on to a gravy train that's moving super fast and you're in competition with everybody. So that'll be interesting to see what he does. I definitely will gladly sit through that. Look, that could be some sounds of the rainforest music that plays when I need to just sit and calm down after a long day at work. So I'm up for it. Chrisean. Rock. I did see this story too. So apparently now Tamar's on tour, and I saw some clip and read the stories. Tamar's on tour. Chrisean is how I met her was through social media. I never knew who this girl was until I started seeing her stuff always posted on social media. Apparently she was on some of the reality shows on Zeus Network. But before then, I think she was a track athlete or something like that. But she was also in a relationship with the rapper Blueface, and she's not with him anymore. But if you are somebody who's on social media a lot, then you have been bombarded with the Chrisean and Blueface stories for like the last 18 months. But anyway, Tamar's on tour celebrating the 10th anniversary of the Love and War Project. And apparently, during Tamar's show, there's a segment where she has, like, I guess, she brings the people in from the stage and they're supposed to dance and have a good time. And apparently there was some element of miscommunication or confusion where Chrisean was under the assumption that she was going to get to perform some song that she has. And she never got to perform her song. She was on the stage during the portion where the people dance or whatever. And yeah, long story short, she didn't get to do whatever song she got to do. There's this weird clip where Tamar's singing Love and War, and somehow Chrisean comes back out and is just standing next to her. Yeah, while Tamar's singing. I was like, this is a lot going on. But getting to the point, some kind of mishap happens backstage where Chrisean is pissed because she's like, y'all told me I was performing something, so on and so forth. And she ends up punching one of the people on Tamar's team. And if I'm correct, I'm convinced, I think that's the same guy that went viral with the patty pies, but he also does a lot of work behind the scenes, and he works with Tamar, and they're like really tight. And he's one of the people helping coordinate the stuff with the show. She pretty much punches this dude out with the rings on. And I mean, the man didn't have to go to the dentist to get teeth fixed, and face was gushing with blood and everything else like that. And apparently it was a disaster. This is something that's floating around on social media. First of all, with Chrisean, like, my beef with people like her and a lot of these other folks who come off of these reality shows, and I'll say this before I give my full 2 cents on her. One, I do think she needs help. I think she's had a really crappy deck of cards in life. I think the way that she has come up plays a role into how she's been moving. I think some of the relationships she's gotten into have been extremely toxic. I don't think she's had a lot of people in her corner for the majority of her life. And so for her, it's hard for her to deal with being in a space where things don't align the way she thought they would align. But with that being said, the beef I have with a lot of folks who come out of some of these spaces is we're now in this area where people create brands off of being real. But their definition of being real is I'm going to punch you in the face when you do something I don't like, right? Their definition of being real is I'm just going to be obnoxious and do whatever the hell I want and F everybody, y'all all are fake, this, that, and the third. Like, that's starting to become a thing, especially when, and I'm not even going to act like I'm too good. Like, I done told y'all, some of the Zeus Network show, I have watched the Jocelyn one because I think it's terribly good entertainment. But watch that kind of stuff in moderation and make sure your headspace is in the right place where you're not influenced by any of that. So yeah, but you're seeing a lot of people who've come out of those kind of spaces and built a brand on literally nothing. Their brand is chaos, right? Their brand is stirring the pot in spaces where they don't need to stir up the pot. So the fact that this woman went to a woman's concert, and Tamar I'm looking at sideways because I'm like, why would you bring her on stage anyway? I don't know their working relationship, but clearly in that video, she's already like drunk or on something. She's not even herself, right? So why would you even get her to a space where she comes on the stage? That's why I was like, what's that about? But, there's a lot of folks who, again, we're getting this influx of people who are starting to get fame and get clout. And a lot of folks, to me, are kind of fronting where this is not even their real personality. Now, I do think with Chrisean, that's exactly really how she is. But you have a lot of people who I think are trying to build a brand, trying to get their clout, trying to build the social media following, trying to get on the next Zeus Network show or get on whatever comes next. And so they start to do a lot of obnoxious and out-of-pocket things because they need to keep their names in the headline. Just like I said in the beginning of this live with the whole Will Smith thing and how, for some bloggers who are trying to get on, especially in the YouTube world, if you approach YouTube and content creation from a vicious standpoint or a savage standpoint where, you're going to dish it all out. I got the new exclusive. I got all of the dirt. I got this. Stay tuned. Wait till you find out whose mom is sleeping with somebody's dad, right? When you open the floodgate from that standpoint, the only thing you can do in order to appease the very people who came to you specifically for that kind of content is to continue giving that. and to continue raising the bar. So you eventually become more ruthless over time. It's the same thing with people who have kind of created these brands where I'm the baddest, I'm the this, I'm the that. And so I've said this a lot of times with these reality shows. The flaw that exists with a lot of them is you don't even know who any of the people are anymore, because the purpose is they just get on these shows and fight. Now, understand, all the reality shows, a lot of them are faking, got a lot of nonsense anyway. But at least in the past, because they still were throwing hands on a lot of these reality shows. Like, you still remember, like, Making the Band way back in the day when Ness and Fred kept fighting, and, you know, Babs was about to fight Dialogue. Like, but at least in those instances, you have the full backstory in the context of who these people were, where they came from, what their experience was like, and then you could understand why whatever has happened has led up to this drama. Even with something, I don't know, with the Housewives, when they all first started, the kind of drama that they had when they had it, it made sense because the shows gave you the introduction into these people's lives, and these people all were friends in real life before they ended up on these shows. And so when it got to a space where there was going to be some hair pulling or whatever, there's some context behind it, and it's not the gist and everything about the show. That's just one highlight that takes place, and there's other things that take place that are funny. Same thing with a lot of the other reality shows, whether it be like Real World from way back in the day or College Hill. Like, you had context. These newer reality shows, you don't even know these people. They walk in the house throwing hands. They don't even know each other. Just go. I'm like, wait, what am I watching? Right? Like, what is going on here? And so, again, we're now in a space where you got all these people who, like, they are trying to build brands off being the baddest. And eventually that gets old because people get desensitized to fighting. It's not even a shock factor anymore. You know what I mean? And so, like, I don't know. And then for Chrisean, at the end of the day, the old boy that she hit, that is still a man. Now, fortunately, in this situation, I think because just he was not trying to escalate, he didn't retaliate the way he possibly could have. Because if the tables had been turned and he retaliated and laid that girl out, he would have been the bad guy. So just understand, like, one, when it comes to, like, violence, do not put your hands on somebody and don't expect to get hit back. That's kind of like where I'm at the moment with folks. But I just think that girl needs some help. And I think whatever opportunities are coming, she keeps squandering them by doing the things that she does. And I think it's unhealthy to constantly have her in the public eye while she's battling or dealing with what she's dealing with. And this girl also has a baby that's in the mix. And it's just, we've seen too much of her personal life, and too much is out there. And I think for her experience, I really think she has a lot of things she's battling mentally. And I think having fame makes it worse, right? Especially when your fame is built on chaos. And this is not, I promise this is not me trying to tear the girl down, but when your fame is not built on anything of substance, right? It's built on being Blueface's girlfriend, which already, Blueface, let's be for real, that's already another conversation in itself. You know, your brand is that, and then you have the reality show, and then understand, Zeus to me has exploited the two of them. It's exploited all the problems that they've had. You know, I haven't seen their show, but I've seen the previews, I've seen the bits that people post on social media, but you've seen all of their business out there, right? And a lot of people, again, especially if you're somebody who has already been trying to fill a void, because there was a void that was never filled coming from childhood into adulthood, the void of wanting to feel loved or feeling that you belong, right? If you've never had that, and then you get fame, and there's all these people who think the world of you, because, hey, she has a lot of fans. People like her because, even though I just had this conversation about people being real, people like her because she's her authentic self, right? So you get all these people who love and admire what it is that you do and want to be just like you, and they support your music and everything like that. Understand that while you're still battling and dealing with things, that fame can be so toxic, because, again, it creates a space that's not even your real reality. Fame is great, but at the end of the day, you still go home behind closed doors, and it's just you and your thoughts. And if you are not well internally, no amount of fame can fix that. And that's kind of like what we talked about with the Milli Vanilli documentary, when we talked about tragically what happened with Rob, and going back to his childhood and being pretty much abandoned as a child and being in orphanages until he was 4 and never really feeling that he belonged. Because, again, there's another conversation about being a Black person raised in Europe. That's another conversation, but not for this video. But understand, that's already an experience. So, again, him going through all of that, and then finally here comes this fame, right? And people think the world of you. You are on a high, but your high is not even your reality, because it's not your voice playing in the music. It's not your voice on anything. It's somebody else's. And everything that has made you feel that you are somebody is built on something that isn't truthful. And then when everything came crashing down, what happened with Rob, sadly? Rob becomes addicted. He already was using substances while they were in the fame, but what happens later down the line? Like, the idea of rejection and the entire world turning on you. And all of those people who once loved you, now you're a punching bag for the media. People are laughing at you. Your money is funny. The people you trusted have jumped ship and everything like that. He ends up having all these substance abuse problems. He tries to take his own life a few times. And sadly, he ends up overdosing and dying. Like, that's the reality. And so I think fame can be such a toxic thing if you are not well here, right? It's one of the reasons why, even with like YouTube and stuff, I really hope like a lot of content creators are careful with how they move, because a lot of people, the goal is keep growing, get bigger, get bigger, get bigger. That's nice. That's wonderful. But if you aren't here and it's not together, YouTube in itself can be a mess. It's one of the reasons why I really don't spend a lot of time in the comment section after the first day or two. Like, I know when I upload something on day 1, on day 2, that's my subscribers. That's my people. Even the people who are subscribed who may disagree with me, they'll say, Calvin, I love you, but I'm disappointed in your response on this. I thought you were going to say this. So, Calvin, I see it differently. All that's fine. Cool. But understand, you get to day 7, day number 8. This is when all of you big black monkey crackhead, your mama's, ain't nobody. Look, I am not subjecting myself to reading all that all the time. And so, again, the idea of chasing, bigger markets or a bigger pool of fame and success, it comes with a territory, and you have to be built to deal with it. And so for me, I'm like, I choose peace. I'm not about to sit here and go back and forth with all y'all every day about some nonsense, especially when I said what I said. It is what it is. You'll just have to get over it, right? And so with Chrisean, I'm like, what are you doing? Like, I think that's all some chaos. They didn't have these back and forths, her and Tamar's team and this person. Folks are getting death threats and stuff. And I'm like, none of this even needed to happen. I'm like, Chrisean, you're going to have to control your emotions. You're going to have to be able to manage and deal with stuff when it doesn't align your way. For me, even if Tamar said she was going to let you sing and she changed her mind, at the end of the day, it's Tamar's show. She doesn't have to let you on her stage. And because you were already drunk and out of it, if I was Tamar, you would have been on the stage, period, because no, you're going to bring the brand down of my show. And then that's why I'm looking at Tamar sideways, like, certain company, you got to mind who you bring into your circles. This is nothing against Chrisean, but to me, the two of them are torn from a different cloth. So why are you even allowing a space for that to happen where now you even allowed like people on your team to be endangered? And what's interesting, if you see the clip where Chrisean is like bothering the backup singer, and the backup singer is like, leave me alone. Like, security should have came and well, actually, you know what? That probably would have been a disaster. That would have been a fight on the stage. So never mind. I'm gonna take that back. But people got to do better. I think Chrisean needs some serious help, and I need people to stop enabling her. Like, as long as you keep enabling certain behavior, they're gonna keep doing the things that they do. Right? She doesn't have anybody in her corner, and I think that's a lot of celebrities. That's a lot of people who are famous, where people they exploit them. Right? Because again, money talks. Keep the money going. Even looking back at like all the stuff they happened with Britney Spears and the conservatorship and all that. Apparently, she wasn't well enough to have her own cell phone, but she was well enough to get propped on a stage and do she do the circus tour and do the Femme Fatale tour and do the Vegas residency and then do a tour overseas and keep that, like, again, and giving the girl lithium just so she can somewhat blink and know what day of the week it is, and then throw her on the stage and get her to perform, because by her performing, everybody gets paid. So understand, this is a very exploitive industry out here, especially again if your claim to fame is built on chaos. Like, it's not built on anything substantial, and it's a mess. The last thing I'm gonna say, Lauryn Hill, somebody was asking me about that. Interesting. It's funny, before the pandemic, Lauryn Hill was the last artist that I saw before the pandemic started. She was a part of, they had like a Black Girls Rock Symposium kind of event at the Kennedy Center, and she was the headliner. And oddly enough, like, when I went to that show, Lauryn Hill was on time. Well, no, she might have been like 15 minutes late, but 15 minutes late for Lauryn Hill is actually good, because she'll come 3 hours late and cuss everybody out with attitude. But she was only like 15 minutes late. The show was good. She still had to remix all the songs, I guess, but it was fine to me. She only did a handful of songs, but there were other people on the ticket. But I saw the clip that people were posting. Well, there's 2 clips. One is a clip of her telling the audience, y'all should be happy I'm even doing these shows, which I'm like, all right, now these people done paid. You can't get mad at the people for getting mad at wanting to get what they paid for. And then the other clip is, she was doing doo-wop, that thing, but it's kind of like she kept kind of adjusting the band, and it was kind of like they were restructuring the song in real time. I will say with that clip, it looks like she just had an epiphany and she wanted to move in a different direction, and she was trying to cue the band to meet her where she's at. I don't think that one was as bad as people painted it out to be, but a lot of folks are also like, yeah, that's for rehearsal, not the live show. But sometimes an artist is in their bag and they feel something and they're like, actually, let's take it in this direction. With all that being said, Would I pay to see Lauryn Hill right now? Absolutely not. Because at this point, she has a track record of doing what she does. So my thing is, if you go to see Lauryn, because there's been some shows that have also been canceled as well, or again, some shows where she comes super late. At this point, you know what you're getting. The only reason I knew the Black Girls Rock thing wasn't going to be a disaster is because it's a contract and there's other people on the bill. You can't skip out on that one. You got to be there. So we'll see how that goes. But I mean, I think, too, a lot of artists, no matter how great your music is, you have to still treat your fans well because they don't always have to stick around. You know, people can move on to someone else. And I think because, again, you know, she has pretty much 2 albums plus the Fugees catalog. You know, eventually people move on to somebody who has more to offer. You're not putting out any new music, so the least you can do is make sure people get a good show. You can't be cussing the crowd out, like letting them have it and having people sit there 2 and 3 hours late. But it ain't just her. There's other entertainers that have done that. I don't know what's going on with the current Madonna show, but I know when she was doing the Madam X show, there was some shows where she wasn't coming out till 1 a.m. It was pissing them fans off. So it's just like, do better by your fans, people. Like, people pay to see you all, so give them what it is they pay for. You know what I mean? I love an entertainer that gives you a show. I love it when it's like an outdoor show and it's downpouring and the entertainer still gives their all. You know, they slipping and falling on the stage and still, to me, that's entertainment. That is artistry. That is connecting with your fans because, hey, they're in the rain with you. At least you got somewhat of a cover and they don't have nothing. It's downpouring, raining sideways. They are standing in these open, you know, amphitheaters in the grass. It's a mini flood and they're standing out there right there with you, just enjoying it. And you're giving it your all. Like, people appreciate that kind of stuff. And that's what gives people longevity, right? People want to go to a show to escape the nonsense they got to deal with in the real world. I went to a lot of concerts this year for some reason. I probably shouldn't have gone to as many because I really need to pay off some other projects I'm still financing. But hey, like for me, them shows were my escapism from a lot of the nonsense just happening in the world. Like for that hour and a half or 2 hours or sometimes 3 hours, just getting reacquainted with certain artists and hearing certain songs and all of that just does something for me. I'm going to pause and read comments. That's pretty much all my topics. So we'll just chop it up in the chat and then we're going to call it a day. So let's see here. Where are we at here? Oh, somebody said they saw him coming out the movie theater. That's Soul Makers. I was like, Andre? That's about Andre 3000. Hey Bibby said he mentioned in an interview that he hasn't been inspired to rap, but I listened to him play. That's my thing. Like when it comes to artists, if they're not inspired, don't come out with nothing. I would rather you come out with something when you're like hungry for it. Like the best artists are the ones who are hungry for it. If you feel like you're just going with the motions, please don't come out with anything. I think that's why there's a handful of entertainers that are out right now that have had very successful careers and people are kind of tapped out by them. There's not even anticipation when they come out with projects at this point or when they announce tours because they've just come out with so much stuff and done so much stuff. It doesn't even feel like it's authentic. It feels like, okay, it's a business move. So some people are like, I'm good on them. Right? Nathan Moore said, why would she invite her? I don't know. That's the thing I don't get. I get that Tamar likes to, Tamar is kind of the lively sister in the family, and she's down with all the chaos and the fun stuff. And, she has a very bright personality. So, maybe they had connected and they were good, and I get it. But sometimes you just have to understand, like, we cool, but no. We cool, but no. We're cool, but no. You know what I mean? Somebody said, Calvin, you watched Joseline's Cabaret? I certainly did watch, I think, the first season of it. Yeah, I was like this, because I kept seeing the clips on Twitter. I'm like, let me watch and see what this is about. So one of these days I watched, I was like, this, and mind you, it's a terrible show. It's honestly terrible. But it's just, for me, I'm like, every now and then you need your different spectrums of entertainment. So I'll sit and watch it just because I'm like, this is, okay, interesting. A mess. I don't endorse it. I don't recommend it. But if you want to watch it, watch it. But yeah. Somebody said Tamar is a bit of a mess too. Let's be honest. Her name does come up in a lot of stuff too. That doesn't help. Like Tamar always got something associated with her name. I'm like, Tamar, ma'am. Goodness, too much. And I like her music, but again, it's like, especially at the age that she's at, you think sometimes certain situations wouldn't take place, right? For me, I look at most artists that are over the age of 40 as distinguished, even if they started later in their careers. So there's kind of a certain essence I associate with them as artists and how they move, right? I don't really do that with Tamar as much. Tamar to me is very, you know, Tamar has a different kind of energy. Very talented. Somebody said, not a fan of new reality shows. Everybody trying to live like a celebrity. Remember, the Chrisleys got busted for laundering money and that fake faking the fuck. I remember, yeah, they're just dealing with the big old sentences they got now. Right. Greenberg said he's a very decent man who did not deserve to be sucker punched. I see no reason as to why anybody got punched in that, right? You come out, you go backstage and cuss out everybody because you thought you were performing, and then they're like, we never had you on the ticket to perform. But even with that being said, if they chose to not put you on, you were never advertised in the ticket anyway. So even if something happened and they're like, you're not at your best to come up here, we're not putting you up, there's still no reason to punch somebody in the face. Like, get out of here, right? Like, absolutely not. Thank you, BT. They said you articulate these issues well, especially the Chrisean situation. Mental health is real. Yeah, like with Chrisean, I see that there's a hurt in her. And I think I've become a very empathetic person after working with children for a decade. You become very empathetic, even when people are in the wrong. You get into the space where you try to piece together, you know, what led to where we are now, rather than going straight to the end result and overreacting with how to handle that. But man, Tamara said everyone should know now. Lauryn Hill, this ain't new. That's where I'm at. Like, I feel like with Lauryn Hill, if you go, you just good luck. I always say go to one of the first 3 shows, right? Let's see. Okay, somebody said Prince was playing guitars in the rain. Yep. Somebody said Tamar was just trying to mentor her. Man, don't you put my full name in here trying to mentor her, Michael. Mine is AEL, first of all. No, just kidding. Chrisean reminds Tamar of how it felt to be young and feel lost, which I totally hear. Remember, Tamar had once been low enough to take her life at one point. She tried to help. I hear all of that, which I totally get. It's just understanding how to move in these situations once all that stuff kind of kicks in. Like, to me, it seems like she was already drunk by the time it got to that portion, which is how she ended up on the stage while Tamar was singing Love and War. I recognize Tamar wanting to extend a hand in sisterhood. That's totally fine, right? But now look at how that sisterhood's moving. Now Chrisean cussing her out, right? Let me see. Jimmy J said, it's unprofessional and disrespectful to the fans. And she got the same excuse every time. We all got stuff to do, Lauryn, especially when you're having concerts on weeknights. Yo, them weeknight shows, man. I mean, I'm glad I live close to the arena, so it's not as much of a hassle. But yeah, I get it. Sometimes I think it was when we did the it was Escape. Yeah, it was the last time Escape was in town. Escape. What? Hold on, let me backtrack. It was like 80 people on the ticket. It was H-Town, Silk, 112, Tevin Campbell, Monica, Tamar, and Escape. And I think I'm missing one person still. I forgot what night that was on, but that show ended like super late. Like, it was Monica had to end her set early because they had run out of time. And I was like, man, I get it. Sometimes when the show's on a weekday, you still got to go to work. I'm like, man, okay. So yeah, if people have come on the weekday, you know, they don't have to take the kids to a babysitter and everything like that, and then you come 3 hours late, like that's tough. Because I always think of like parents and stuff that, you know, are paying a babysitter. When most people think of a concert, they're figuring, okay, if the concert starts at about 8 o'clock, the show's probably over by 10. I expect to be home by 11 if I live close to the venue, maybe 11:30 at the latest. So if an artist is coming out 2 and 3 hours late, and then they're running, if the venue allows them to keep performing that late, and now, you know, it's 1 o'clock in the morning when the show ends, like now they got to pay the babysitter extra. Like, people got to be considerate with all that. You know what I mean? Let me see. Oh, that looks cool. If you're in the LA area, Stevie does a concert here during Christmas. I went last year. That would be fun. I think Mariah Carey's on like a holiday tour as well. I think he just started in Chicago yesterday or the day before. That's cool. Did I have anything else worth mentioning? No, that's pretty much everything. So we'll chop it up for a few minutes and then I'm gonna call it a night. We got through these 10 pages. I thought we were gonna be stuck here all night. Let me see here. Okay, somebody said, yeah, Mariah's on a holiday tour. All right. Y'all know I told you it's holiday time. I be cranking my Christmas music. Like, my Christmas music be hitting. Maybe I'll add a Christmas playlist to all those playlists I share with y'all. But yeah. I have not figured out what I'm doing for the holidays yet. I don't feel like traveling, so I might spend my holiday season in DC. Let me see. Somebody say it's a 3-day festival. You don't have to attend all 3, but you should see so many. Oh, yeah, Alan, we got to get you to a concert, man. Alan's one of the long-time subscribers. He said he's never been to a concert yet. You got to go to something. I think that, I mean, you don't have to, but concerts are really fun, especially if they have very good prices. I love a reasonably priced show. I be getting pissed when they start charging way too much and then you go and the show was underwhelming. That's the worst feeling in the world. Let me see here. Somebody said Tamar is your stereotypical youngest sibling. Age will never matter. I guess. I think Tamar, and I will say Tamar has some other stuff she's dealt with too. They've been very open as a family with things they're battling. And again, we saw they lost Tracy, sadly. So I get it. So, you know, I commend her for wanting to take Rashawn under her wing. I get it. But yeah, it's sometimes, again, yeah, I can take you under my wing, but you're not coming on my stage. Sorry. Not if you're gonna be doing that. Right. Christine said I'm going to see Anita Baker in December. We saw her. It was a cool show, but this was right during the mix of all the Babyface drama. So we were the first show right after Babyface had made the statement about why he couldn't come on stage in Jersey. And then there was all the Twitter arguments and the fighting and all that. So I didn't even know if Babyface was going to make it to my show, but he was there. I saw them at the Baltimore date. So it was a good show until somebody started fighting in the balcony. I'm like, how you going to fight at an Anita Baker show? It's not even that kind of environment. You know, it's Anita Baker. It's love songs. She don't even got no up-tempos. Everything is here. This is all in a healthy pocket. We are singing about love, and y'all up there throwing hands in section 400. That's too high to be fighting anyway, because if you fall, you ain't going to make it out alive. That's not a sprained ankle. That's a broke neck. Yes, fighting at the Anita show. I said, what kind of mess? Look, they didn't even fight at the Wale show, but they done fought at the Anita Baker show. All right. Let me see. Oh, Whitney just was in here. My roll dog went with me to the show. Then in our roll, the lady at the end of the roll, she was going to fight the people. You know, the people that have the CSC yellow coats that they're the event coordinators. There was some girl who I guess Anita Baker was her everything because we had some floor seats. And so she had been waiting on this concert for 9 months. I only know that because that's what she yelled at the lady in the yellow. And so the girl on the end, for some reason, she kept like dancing out in where we were sitting. We're on like the back of the floor, and then it was like our row stops, and then there's the big sound booth, and then there's open space, and then on the other side is the next row. And so the people in the event kept telling her she has to stay in this area because you can't keep going over by where the sound people are and the lighting and everything. We don't want you messing any of that up, and you need to stay in this just for safety reasons anyway. And so she started getting like just get the attitude. I had waited for the show, and I mean like she was having like this whole like spiritual connection to this show. I mean, it was like she was worshiping Anita. It got really, really weird, right? And then while she's arguing with the people in the yellow shirts, me and my friend are like looking. Then she started cussing out my friend, and she's like, "What you looking at?" I was like, "Oh Lord!" Now I gotta calm my friend down because my friend will pop off when it's time. And I told y'all I'm the good time friend. Don't call me when it's time to start scrapping because it got to make sense for me to jump in. So yeah, I was like, all right, let's bring it on down. She's already in cuckoo land over there, so let her have her exorcism with Anita. We'll just stay here and be good. Because yeah, she randomly started popping off on everybody in our row. And I'm like, again, it's an Anita Baker show. She's singing Same Old Love, right? She's singing, you know, she's singing You Bring Me Joy and Talk to Me and Just Because and Caught Up in the Rapture. So how are you possibly in a space where you want to throw hands? People are crazy. Crazy. But you know what? They fought at the Janet show one time. When I was at the Rock With You tour, somebody got in a fight right while Janet was doing Black Cat, that makes sense. Black Cat is when the da-da-da-da-da. So yeah, I get it. And Janet had all the pyrotechnics. So I get it. That's different because it was energetic, but it was somebody fighting right on the 100 section to my left. And it was funny because first of all, Janet is very calculated in her stage shows. Like, just understand, even when she walks from the left to the right, that has been choreographed and organized. She's going to walk to the left to the right at the exact same time in every city. Like, she moves a certain way, right? And so she was on one side, and they started doing all that fighting. She looked at them CSC people like, fix this. because she couldn't walk to the other side yet because the pyrotechnics were shooting. So she had to kind of stay in that area. But, fortunately, it didn't escalate into too much. Plus, I was like, nah, y'all not about to fight at this show. Y'all ain't ruining this for me. Y'all be fighting at these shows. Man. Don Smart said the Lionel Richie and Earth, Wind & Fire concert was amazing. Philip Bailey shook the building with his voice. Best falsetto, hands down. I'm still mad I didn't go. I told y'all why I didn't, because I saw Lionel Richie, and I'm not. I respect Lionel. He's a legend. I'm just not into him. And when I realized that Earth, Wind & Fire wasn't the headliner and it was him, I was like, oh, I'm not trying to sit through these 1982 easy listening, soft, focused songs he was coming out with, because I didn't like most of them. I like his Commodore work. Like, I love all that, right? I love Zoom. Zoom is my song. I love Zoom. We love Brick House. We love Easy Like Sunday Morning. But once it came to them 80s and all them black artists were, going through that commercial decline, and the only way to get any kind of relevance on radio as a black artist in 81, 82, 83 was going easy listening, adult contemporary, he just kept coming out with all them ballads. Now, I'll let him have Endless Love. That's a good one. Him and Diana did that. But, some of them other ones, I'm like, oh, this is so boring. So I was like, I am not sitting through this, right? Even though I like his later music. I like the album he had, in 0506. I did like that song that had I Call It Love. I even like some of the country stuff. But I love Earth, Wind & Fire. But I just was like, I'm not paying. Sorry. And by the time I realized that they were here, because, again, living by the arena, I just be walking and picking up food and minding my business. And then you see everybody putting on minks and nice fedora hats. I'm like, what's going on tonight? Oh, okay, it's Earth, Wind & Fire. By the time I was considering buying a ticket, the show had already started. Because, again, like I said before, all of the acts and entertainers that are over the age of 60 start on time. They do not start 1 minute late. When I took my godmom to see Gladys and the OJs, Gladys was on stage exactly at 8 o'clock. Actually, the show started at 7, I think. We were at Wolf Trap? It was Wolf Trap. We just got the parking spot, and my godmom was like, well, maybe let me get a quick soda. And it's like 7:58, and we're walking, and as soon as 7:59 switched into 8, that band said, I'm like, wait a minute, damn, like they jumped straight into Love Overboard. I was like, now we got to rush to our seats. So yeah, the season entertainers, they got to go to bed. They are not staying up all night with us. Man. All right. Let me see here. Why are y'all yelling at what did I miss here? Let's see. Y'all always got some drama. Can we be okay? All right. Somebody said, damn, it ain't Nuck if you buck. That's what Monica said at the show. Because that show too, they started fighting. The same one I told you about with Escape and Tevin Campbell and all them. During Monica said, I don't even remember what she was singing, but these two girls on to our right got to wrecking, and Monica said, whoa, wait a minute. We ain't singing Nuck if you buck. These supposed to be love songs. And then Monica's literally talking to the two girls that's arguing or whatever. He's like, we're not doing that. And one of the girls, no, I'm tired. Something. And Monica's, yeah, all of us are too. Me too. Somebody buy her a drink. I said, that's why I do like Monica, because, again, Monica's from around the way, so she ain't scared of nothing. So she would definitely call out some nonsense when she see it. But, man, crazy. But, no, I'm done with concerts for the rest of the year. I ain't spending no more money. Like, I ain't got it. I still need a new MacBook. So I need to stop spending money. And then with Earth, Wind & Fire, I wish I would have saw them before all the members started passing. I still want to see them at some point. But I know they're now going on tour with Chicago, which is cool. Chicago's not really my band. They got a song or two I like, but I think it's another situation where they're the opener. I'm like, dang, why y'all be doing Earth, Wind & Fire like that? To me, they can headline. All right? Come on. Let me see here. Anyway, somebody said, now this fight you're talking about was in DC, right? Yes, the Monica one was in the Monica one. The fight the Monica Escape show was DC. The fight during Black Cat was Janet in 08 in DC. The Anita Baker one was Baltimore, right? Let me see here. What's left on here? I need to go to bed, y'all. Oh, Lord. So Megan said, Anita's voice just has a tone I can't get with. Don't pull my black card. I think there are some singers who have a unique tone that fits specifically for the music that they make. That's my opinion on Anita Baker, because every time she does the national anthem, they give her so much smoke. And I think for the music she makes, it works. Same thing with like a Sade. Like, the lead singer of Sade, her voice fits for the kind of music that the band makes, right? Some people just have a voice that fits their specific sound. I think Macy Gray's in that same boat as well. I'm not saying these people all have the same kind of talent, but I'm just talking about distinctive voices that are unique. I think with Macy Gray, her voice works with her specific kind of songs, right? I remember when she did, this is when Janet had Icon, and then she had did Janet's Love Will Never Do Without You. I didn't like it. I liked the ending when they got to the love, because, you're not singing, but it was like, I didn't think it sounded good. Well, actually, I take that back. Macy sounded good once she got out of that low pocket and went to a higher one. But I was like, y'all are struggling to sing. Okay. All right. Got it. Anyway, I'm going to leave that one alone. It said, V. Carter said, Calvin, you have the best life stories, many adventures. See, this is why y'all should listen to the podcast. Because y'all was cussing me out like, when's the next one? And now it's out. So go and listen to it. Right? We are on episode 32. Also with the podcast, like I said, when I do the podcast, and mind you, the podcast is different from the content we do here. The Comedically Hard-Headed podcast is storytelling. I'm not talking politics. I ain't cussing nobody out. I'm just telling people, or I'm sharing different stories that have taken place in life. Sometimes I'm talking about my childhood growing up in Europe. Sometimes I'm talking about my childhood growing up in Washington State. Sometimes I'm talking about what happened when I was at Howard. Sometimes I'm talking about different projects I jumped into that did not work out. Sometimes I'm talking about, right now the new series is all of my work with the kids. So what happens is I upload the newest episodes to these streaming platforms. So if you're trying to stay caught up, then it's best to listen on services like, Stitcher, Spotify, Apple Podcast, SoundCloud. I'm one step from yanking it from because I'm tired of paying the membership to SoundCloud. And SoundCloud, nobody's even on it like that. But, all these different things, Google Podcasts, all these different platforms that have podcasts. And then what I normally do is a few months after the episode has had its initial run on the streaming sites, then it gets put on YouTube. So the episode, and that's why on the YouTube description, when I post a podcast, I always post initial release date so people realize this is not a new episode. So for those who like the podcast and are always like, when's the next one? I think right now on the YouTube channel, it's on episode 29, I think. But we're currently on episode 32 on the streaming site. So yeah, if you want to be caught up, you can always go that route. But yeah, I love that you guys love this new series because, like I said, the podcast was on its last leg. I was tired of doing it because nobody was really listening to it like that. And I was like, I'm over it. Plus, I was running out of stories. But, around the same time, that's when I ended up, I don't know, it got a second win. Like maybe around the time I did the episode about the church choir, it just got a second win from there. So I was like, all right, we'll keep it going. And then I started working with some other people as well in regard to, doing some film stuff. So I was like, all right, we'll keep it going. And once I transitioned out of working with the youth and working into my new role, I was like, well, now I can talk about my experience with the kids because I don't work there no more. And by the way, in those instances, because some people are asking a lot of questions, all of the names in that podcast have been changed in regard to if there's any story that I've told that does not show somebody in a great light, their name has been changed, right? So, and with the episodes with my work with kids, every person's name has been changed. I've changed the context of the location of some places and where stuff was because I don't need nobody trying to piece stuff together and figure stuff out, right? So understand a lot of that, all of that is 100% factual, but the names, the context of location, sometimes even the time frame has been altered just to fit with the podcast, just to protect other people's identity, all right? I recognize I have a big platform. All right. Oh, Lord, I got some trolls in here. Y'all, how do the trolls, like, show up all late? Like, absolutely not. Yeah, we're not doing that. Anyway, let me see here. We're going to wrap soon. Yes, Boss Lady is a trip. And I actually just ran into her about a week ago. I'll talk about it when it gets there in the podcast. But yeah, it was yeah, if you don't know what I'm talking about, I don't know what to tell you. But yeah, it's interesting. Boss Lady, if you've been following those episodes, it's interesting. I will say what I love is because right now the podcast is still in the infant stages of the Work with Kids series, right? Because again, I was running this center for 11 years. We're only on we just got to the beginning of year number 3, right? And that's through like 7 episodes. So there's a long way to go. There's so much that happens. Some really, really good, some really, really bad. Some moments are really, really sad. There's going to be a few shockers that come out of that later down the line. But it's all, I have fun reliving those stories kind of. And then just you get a good laugh kind of revisiting some stuff, right? Yes, the podcast is on Spotify. It's called Comedically Hard-Headed. Does Boss Lady know about my podcast? I hope not. I hope not. No, I don't think she does. Dang it! Now why am I getting an ad? Yeah, no, I don't. Boss Lady. Okay, when I worked with the kids, like I said, I kept all that separate. My kids ended up discovering that I made music and that I had a YouTube channel. But as far as Boss Lady would not end up being Boss Lady forever. Eventually, something happens, and there's a new boss that comes in. And so by the time the new boss had come in and Boss Lady was out of the picture, my channel and everything I had going was still not super, super massive. And I didn't even have the podcast yet. I didn't start the podcast till 2018, right? So most of the people who know me from work, who know if they know that I do anything, they know that at some point I've done stand-up comedy. And at some point I've been a choreographer. They know those two. But everything else, a lot of folks aren't aware of. But every now and then, especially at this current jobs, people are like, I know you. And I'm like, damn, here we go. So there's about 4 people on this new job who know exactly who I am. I'm like, all right. But yeah, I'm not going to ever talk about the new job unless I magically leave it and find something else. All right. These little spammers are pressed in this comment thing today. My God. All right. Avocado Queen, you getting it in with this moderating you're doing. Shout out to you. Let me see if I can handle this person too. Let's knock that out. We're going to handle that so they won't be saying anything else. Yeah, I don't know why the spam bots have showed up. Y'all gonna wait till the live is over to want to stir up the stuff. Somebody said what? Because of my Anita comment? I don't know what happened. I missed that. Yeah, I've lived about 20 different lives, y'all. Somebody said they didn't know I was a choreographer. Yes, I was one for like 3-4 years. It also helped me to pay for all my food and stuff while I was in college. I used to teach a bunch of competition groups and troops and stuff back in the day. I'm talking like I'm so old. But when I was like 17, 18, 19, 20, until about 23, right? From about 17 to 23, I was choreographer professionally. And then I kind of jumped into different things because by then I was now working with the kids. And so that's changed. Now I still do dance, right? If I ever do any more music or shoot another video or anything, you'll probably see me cutting 2-step. If I ever shoot any music videos, just know I choreographed it. Even though I know there's a project I've been working on that's a bit more collaborative, but it's a 50-50 joint venture. But yeah, so there's that. Let me see here. Anyway, y'all are still if they don't like Anita Baker, they don't like her. It's okay. Everybody ain't for everybody. I didn't see Belize Gallo here tonight, but y'all know she does not like my favorite entertainer, and we go back and forth on the live every time we do a live, right? And it's all in love. Oh, that's cool, V. Carter. She said and this is about Earth, Wind, and Fire, during their set, they had videos of Maurice White, because you remember tragically he passed. I still want to feature his book in our book club at some point, but when I gave y'all the vote on which books y'all wanted to do, y'all didn't want to do that one. Whatever. Anyway, they had videos of Maurice White performing with them. It was like Maurice was performing with them. Philip Bailey's son performs with the band too. That's cool. It kind of reminds me of TLC when Left Eye initially passed. And he had to do some of those earlier shows, and they would have Left Eye on the screen. By the way, they are. Dang it, Janet, I love you, but you couldn't have TLC for the opening act with us too. Like Ludacris was cool, but Janet has extended her tour. Now it's going to Asia, but TLC will be the opener for Janet at that one. I was like, man, I would have loved to be at that. If you know, TLC was one of my favorites growing up as well. I've seen them back in 2014, but that would have been cool to see them. All right. Why are the trolls pressed on my channel? Y'all gonna have to do better than that. Come on somewhere with all that. Yeah, I don't understand what that's about. We don't do nonsense over here. This is not a trash channel, so don't bring no trash to my channel, please. Thank you. All right. Somebody said we can do his book next. That could be an interesting one. There's been a few I've been reading, but again, we'll figure it out. We still have a few more chapters left of this short and tragic life of Robert Peace, and so we'll put the poll out when it's time. Somebody said you wear many hats. Yes, I wear many hats. If I were to jump into everything I've done at this point, which is why sometimes when people be trying to light me up, whatever, or try to like clown or fry me up for whatever I jump into, at this point, even if it's not in the most major capacity, I have pretty much done everything I've ever wanted to do, right? So like I said, I've had the choreography years, right? I've released music. I've shot a movie. I've done stand-up comedy. I was a choir director at some point. I've acted before. I've done theater. Whatever. Now we got the podcast. I think I already said I did the stand-up comedy. Done public speaking. done all kind of panel discussions and symposiums, and then you add into account the YouTube channel and then the podcast and whatever else I got going. Like everything I've ever wanted to do, I've done in some kind of capacity. It may not be the biggest platform, but there's an element of contentment that you feel when you can look back and say, well, at least I did it, or at least I tried. I worked as a journalist for a magazine, like I've done a whole bunch of stuff, right? Yeah, and then there's the work with the children, and I've had some of my work performed at the Kennedy Center at some point. So it's kind of like life has been good for me. It's a lot of work. I'd be tired all the time, right? Which is why I was annoyed with all the people who sometimes are dismissive when you say, like, I just need a week. I'll be back on YouTube next week. Folks be getting attitude when you be going for more than 2 weeks. All right, we're gonna wrap up soon. Oh yeah, Avocado Queen said, she said I was in my best behavior tonight. No shaking the table. Somebody said you got that hustle culture energy. I don't even really think I have it because everything has been spread out. Like I believe in getting sleep, to be honest. Like I know that's kind of the thing right now where everybody's like hustle. I'll hustle, but it just needs to make sense. You know what I mean? Like some people, and everybody has their own journey, right? There's some people who I feel bad for, who they brag because I only get 3 hours of sleep, like on purpose, because they're trying to do all this stuff. And it's like I get that, and I respect the hustle, but I just think you have to be at your best in order to really have an impact and an effect on what it is that you want to do. So yes, put in the work, do those late hours, grind. I get it, but also you have to still take care of yourself at the same time. And as I've gotten older, I had a web series too. And as I've gotten older, I've learned to prioritize myself as far as just everything, health. That's why I started becoming a gym head and started going to the gym and getting more exercise, trying to cut back on I still drink every now and then. I drink socially, but I'm not really a drinker. I don't smoke, not even weed, and everything else like that. You still got to take care of you in order to really be at your best, because there's a lot of people who burn out. So you just want to kind of take care of yourself at the same time. So I've learned to work very smart, right? And it really starts to show in the podcast later down the line when we get to these later years. A lot of the podcast is very stressful right now to listen to because you're like, how much crazy stuff did they have y'all doing? But understood. Once me and Ava started figuring out things and learning to work smart, it became a very smooth process. So around 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So around like the 6th year is when everything really starts to come together as far as the center getting all these like major national accolades and everything else like that. Just crazy. All right. It is time to go to bed. This is a great question, Avocado Queen. When are you coming to the Bay Area for a meet and greet? So I'm supposed to come to the Bay in January. I do not know if I can still make that date because of another thing I've signed on for. So I know I'm going at some point before the end of the spring because I have not seen that family on that side since 2019. And there's a few other people I needed to connect with on that side anyway. And then what I was likely going to do was do the Bay Area and then go to LA right afterwards. Since it's, if you're already in the Bay, you can get a nice flight to LA for like $100, right? And then do some LA stuff and visit my grandpa and everything like that. So yeah, I'm planning to be on that side at hopefully before the first 3 months of the year is over, going into 2024. If not, it will definitely be before the end of the spring. But yeah, I'm definitely planning to go to that side. All right. I'm also planning to go home. I have not been to my home state of Washington since 2018. But that'll be later in the fall, like September 2024, right? I want to go to the state fair and get me an elephant ear and get me one of those scones. And yeah, sometimes I miss like being in like a small town. Like DC is cool. DC is I've lived in DC longer than I have anywhere else at this point. But sometimes I miss like small things. I was telling that to my writing partner for all of our film stuff. I was like, sometimes I miss like that small town element. Simple things like, there was like one deli in Spanaway, and I remember like going to that one because it was by the high school, and they used to have the best corn dogs when I was in high school. And like I miss like stuff like that. There was this lady that made kettle popcorn by the Kmart. The Kmart's gone now, but because I was from a small town, it's called Spanaway. But that kettle corn used to smell so good when you would walk past it. Like simple stuff like that I miss. There was this Mexican restaurant called like El Hidalgo that I think it's gone now. My brother was saying it ain't there no more. But like I miss them. Like I don't even eat cheese, but I would eat their food. I'd eating cheese knowing I'm not supposed to be hurled over in the bathroom afterwards, but that was some good food, right? Like some simple things I miss sometimes. So I'm like, I would like to go visit home at one point. Let's see. We need to wrap up. I love that we are chopping it up here. Amen says Calvin got 15 jobs. I've always kept it balanced. Now there was one point where I was really being stretched. Like I was running a community center, I was teaching dance at Born a Dance Studio, I was working for the magazine, and I was doing and I think at the same time that's when I was doing the web series. I was like, dang, this is a lot. I was stretched, man. When is the next time I'm going to? I don't know the next time I'm going to Atlanta. I gotta go at some point. My mom's there. Probably Atlanta before the spring is over as well. Yeah. Yes, I was born and raised on the West Coast, DJ Brobot. Yes, born and raised on the West Coast, but have lived on the East Coast for my entire adult life. Oh, so Megan said, Calvin, you should visit the dude that you stayed with that had the dog where your brother broke the mirror and tried to hide it. That's also from the podcast. That was this guy, Mr. Sam. Mr. Sam actually moved back to his hometown, so he actually lives in Kansas City. So yeah, he's not there anymore. Shout out to Tacoma, Washington. R-E. Shout out to you. So Megan said, I watched The Wiz on opening night. Avery Wilson can sing. Avery Wilson is an exceptionally talented vocalist. I would really like to see his career really blow up. Like he has an amazing range. There's a lot of really good singers out there. And I'm hoping at some point the structure of the industry will start to shift and give a lot of these really great singers better opportunities again. Because there's some great talent out there. You just need some better management in regard to what's happening in the industry as far as the people who are the gatekeepers to success. Let's see here. I'll wind down slowly. I think the Wiz production, that's Candy's production group, right? I think Candy's one of the producers behind that one. Whitney said, where are these trolls at? Oh, I done already moved them out of the chat because y'all are out for 24 hours. Ain't nobody got time. Let's see. Winding down. Y'all know I haven't eaten my dinner yet either. V. Carter said, or Pixie Dust said, I just did a lot of music artists I love. I've seen Janet every time she comes to my city. Pixie, look, every time Janet come, I'll be there. I almost went to Atlanta to see Janet when she did the festival with Kendrick Lamar, but I'm trying to cut back on how much I'm spending, right? And I know she's in Houston on December 1st or 2nd, but I'm cutting back on how much I'm spending, so I'm not going to Houston either. Which place are you from again? I am originally from Spanaway, Washington. That's where I was born. That's where I was raised. But I also spent some time living in Savannah, Georgia. I spent some time living in Vicenza, Italy. Spent some time living in Alexandria, Virginia. Currently live in DC. Those are the main places that I've lived the longest. I've also had some time in the Bay Area as well, but it wasn't a super long time. All right. This was really, really good. This was a great live. We covered a lot. Oh yeah, you spelled Spanaway correctly. That's how it's spelled. So Omega. Yeah, I have to double check and see when the Wiz is traveling. Also, for those in Mobile, Alabama, there's a production of the Wiz that I know is on November 26th in Mobile, Alabama. So for those in that town, double check them. It's a different production of the Wiz from a different act, but there's a really dope guy that his name is CJ, who has done a little bit of everything as well. And so he's put a lot of work in behind that show with the people he's worked with. So if you're in Mobile, Alabama, definitely check that show out as well. Shout out to Hinesville, Georgia. Okay. All right, this has been cool. Oh, that's a good question. Look, at least I know somebody listening to my music. Christine said, Michael, who's the baby laughing at the end of the affirmation? Always wondered about that. That is my daughter. No, I'm just kidding. No, the way to stir up some stuff on here. No, that's my goddaughter. My little goddaughter, or my first one. I got 3 godchildren, 2 girls and 1 boy. But and eventually I had my own at some point. But yeah, that's my goddaughter. That was when she was like 1.5, 2. And so what you hear her and her father playing. Like the whole family was here just kind of hanging out. And she was learning to crawl and run and spring. So she just had this adorable laugh. So I just happened to turn on the recording equipment just to capture her voice and put it on at the end of the song. Because the lyrics are talking about like living for something and, the affirmation and, living your best life pretty much. So it's like, yeah, there's nothing more joyous than like the laughter of a baby. You know what I mean? All right. Plus, it was smart because I put her name in the royalties and credits. So in the event that I ever blow up or anything and there's some money that comes, hey, she got a check coming. All right. See how that works? All right. Anyway, I'll be glad to release some new music. I love that people still are listening to the hardcover, but the hardcover at this point has come out 4 years ago. So it's time to bring some new stuff. And then even with that, Symphonic Euphoria really came out. That was 2017. Yeah, so 2017 was my first album. 2019 is the second. And so we got some stuff coming down the pipeline. Can't wait. That's all I'll say. Awesome. Last comment of the night. Yeah, y'all are all about to pass out if I said I had some kids. I mean, I'm at that age. I need to actually hurry up while I'm at it. I'm getting to that point where I'm about to be 52 stepping on Legos if I don't quit playing. So, yeah. All right. So, yeah, if anybody wants to procreate, let me know. No, I was kidding. All right, guys. This has been dope. I'm going to bed. Like I said, whole lot going on in the world. Do what you can to stay safe and stay sane, and also mind your business so that you can age well. All right, folks. Good night. See you later.